To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Public comment, is there any public comment?
I'm here because about a month ago, I sent you an email. Pardon me?
We get your name.
Zona Hale. I sent you an email to request time on the schedule. I waited a month. I was ignored. When Laura first came on the commission, we had that Misty fight. They never once denied us time on the schedule. We put it on every week. We were here every week with hundreds of people. And the reason we weren't denied is because it's unlawful to do that to a citizen. It's against the law. And I'm saying that because, of course, you know I'm someone who wants to fire you. I wrote the letter in the paper to recall you because I don't think you're doing a good job. But in Montana, we cannot recall a county commissioner unless you have violated the law. And as far as I know, you've done that twice. When we did that Misty fight, one of the hardest things, one of the most difficult things, because it was an advocacy fight, that Misty fight was something that was going to affect people in this community after the fact. Very few people knew, and we're going to experience it head on. That's why we only had hundreds of people instead of thousands of people, but that was a pretty good fight. And we won, and you lost. The hardest thing was getting people interested and letting them know and educating them and getting them involved. Because in advocacy, you have people, you have money, we had no money. But you guys have done something I can't even believe you did. I mean, hats off to you. I salute you. You hired Mary Hendrickson. And I cannot believe you did that because I have never seen a human being galvanize the attention of every citizen in this county more effectively, more efficiently, and so totally as Mary Hendrickson. We don't even have to do that part of the work. It's the hardest part of the work is getting people involved. That's already done. It's already done. Because of that, it has brought this community, I mean, she's a gift that keeps on giving. I can go anywhere in this town, anywhere in this county, I can talk to people I don't even know, and people are paying so close attention, it's just not the solid waste thing anymore. They're paying attention to everything. They're paying attention. I'm having conversations I can't even believe. I'm learning things I generally don't pay attention to. After Misty, I was done. But I'm telling you, this is a problem. This is a problem. People are wondering, why isn't the solid waste department paying for itself? It's set up to pay for itself. What happened to all the money? And we're not getting straightforward, honest answers, or at least an answer that makes any sense. What's happening with all the lawsuits? You know, I'm hearing scuttlebutt. I'm not even going to ask you because I know you're not going to tell me. But I'm hearing that the lawsuit thing going on in this county, that we don't even know how many there are, but the insurance out of Mako isn't going to cut it. You're way over your ceiling. I don't know if that's true. I don't know. People are concerned. And we feel like we're dealing with an unresponsive government body, just like was happened in Misty. And we could bring hundreds of people in here, it's easy, we got it. Somebody else is handling that petition, which I'm sure you're aware of, hundreds of people that are very upset, and you're not working when you don't respond to the citizens. And they're angry. I mean, people are really, really angry. And it's not just the solid waste, it's the money. It's what's going on with the rodeo grounds. It's where the money's being spent. It's all this stuff. People are asking questions nobody knows the answer to. Because we're not getting answers. People are talking to each other, but we're not getting answers. And I'm not going to ask again to be put on the schedule. I've learned from that fight what it's like to deal with an unresponsive political body. And as far as I'm concerned, there's only 3 avenues you can take. with something like that. That's you guys getting it together and making the decisions. If you were a private business, you'd be out of business, because you're not taking care of your customers. They're not satisfied with the services they're getting for what they're paying for. You can privatize it, that's another way to do it. Or we recall you. I mean, things that are going, this last couple of weeks, we all discovered that our political speech on the social media that we were using here in this town has been shut down. That, coupled with the garbage police, I mean, it reminds me of Nazi Germany. I mean, what in the world are you doing? You know, what is this about? Why is this happening? You know, just for anybody's information, I'll tell you something. We, the citizens, can use this building to organize. You can go to the sheriff's office, you have to publicize it, it's a public meeting. You go to the sheriff's office, get a key, you can come in here in the evening, you can organize. I did it. I did it week after week after week after week. Anyone can do it. That's available to us. They can shut us off of social media, but we can still do it. You know. I'm just saying. There are a lot of really smart people in this community that can help solve these problems if you work with them. I mean, a lot of them came forward on this garbage thing, and they were ignored on how to handle this. But hey, if you want Mary Hendrickson to handle it, you know, talk about a way to unite this community. I'm meeting more people now I haven't met in years. You know, people, I'm not that kind of person, I'm not out and about that much, so I'm just saying. I'm not gonna ask again, that's it.
Thank you.
Right.
Any other public comment?
I just want to ditto what she said, and I'm really ashamed of you,
Yeah.
personally you. You just looked up for 2 seconds at the end of her rant. Volkford looked at her eye to eye the whole time. I'm ashamed of you, ashamed of you. Wow. I'm done.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Bill Davis. I've been busy and I haven't been into your meetings, but I knew Zona Hale from a child. She was the Kempton family, and she's right. My phone has been rung a lot, guys. The county, the residents are feeling that they're really being shut out, neglected, not listened to. A lot of the people that have called me have said that they've come and asked for things, or they've asked for different things done. Yes, a lot of it's the solid waste thing, and most of them have told me the same thing that I put in the paper, that Mary Henderson should be fired.
Yeah.
And the three of you, the county commissioners, should run the solid waste department, should take in the public's input and try and come to an agreeable agreement that would work for the financial of the county and for the people of the county, the convenience or the help. And the winter time's coming, it's going to be worse, but anyway, Zona's right. We're getting a tremendous amount of support. And please, I don't know, you guys are commissioners and you know more, have a public meeting. I don't know what to do, but we're being shut out. And like the road department, the second day Mary Henderson was hired, I called her and asked her to come out. She talked to Brandon Flynn, she talked to me in the area. A couple other people on Cottonwood had talked to me, and some out in Crow Creek, Muddy Lane, there was some issues. And she said, I said, Mary, what's your, how good are you on roads? What do you know about roads? She told me, I know nothing about roads, Bill. I'm a solid waste person. I work for the state. I do not know anything about the roads. And I said to her, I said, okay then, will you please have a meeting and ask some county residents, farmers, ranchers, drivers, anybody to come to it and get all of the information on the roads that need work, where it's done. And can you listen to us in the areas and do some things to the road? I took her up 3 sets of roads the second day she was hired and asked her to do this, this, and this in the future, put it on a 5 or 10 year plan. And I said, look at what's been done. I said, there was grants given, And these culverts were installed up here, and the water's down here, and the road's down here, and the water runs over the road, not through the culverts. And one road, it's bad, and it flooded, and a lot of people in the county are telling me the same thing. Well, then I find out that there was a man that worked for Dick Anderson Construction come in and applied for the job, and you hired Mary Henderson, and he had been with them for 25 years as a road department foreman. And he wasn't hired. And I don't understand. So anyway, I back zone up, and a lot of people are backing what up I'm telling. I'm just trying to give you their information. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Karen Coelius. I still wonder when you're gonna work with the union for the detention center. I still think Mary Hendrickson is way overpaid because I think people in public safety deserve more.
Any other public comment? Tim?
Tim Ravendall, citizen. Question. One of the things that recently heard in one of the commission meetings was reflecting on the Copper City Road. And I've talked to several people that have been in road building since that meeting, where our public works director said it was going to cost $600,000 a mile. I'm not paraphrasing, I don't remember the exact number. But when I reflected that information to some other people that are in the road building business and have been involved with local government, they're going, wow, where did they come up with that figure? And one of the guys that is in the business said, I just got done doing one in Choteau County, and it was just a hair over $100,000 a mile to start from scratch and build it. Again, just wanted to make sure you folks hear that that's part of what we're hearing as well. The misinformation or the misrepresentation of figures continues. When the solid waste program first started, I asked Mary why she was promoting $170,000 debt in that department when actually at the day of the very first town hall down in Crow Creek, that number was $325,000. And I asked, why aren't we updating that? I went to the next one in Winston, and it was the same posters with the same figures. Without knowing the true facts, it's hard for citizens to understand what the true plate is. I've been down this road with you folks. I'm not here to beat up anything, just wanting to make sure that I can help get this truth out. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Corey?
Hey, I just wanted to follow up. I've already put this announcement out, but tonight, if you're interested, there's a town hall meeting tonight in the courtroom with people from the Office of the Commissioner of Securities and Insurance and Office of Consumer Protection, and we're basically, if there's any issues that people have with hail damage claims, whether problems with their insurance claims, or there's a lot of tips on how to avoid scammers, that's basically what's gonna happen tonight. It's about an hour long, starting at 6 p.m., I believe, 6 p.m. And in the last 5 years, I've prosecuted at least 5 people that came in, did an insurance, or did a bid for somebody on a project, said, well, I need half the money down. People are forking over $1,500, $2,000, and then they never see them again. So we would like to prevent that rather than having to chase them down and prosecute them, try and squeeze water out of them, out of a rock, and they don't have the money. I'd rather do that on the front end by some prevention. So that's the purpose of tonight's meeting. You're all invited. I did put a couple of these up last week. I went by the bulletin board this morning and it's down, so I put it all over internet and our usual distribution list, but they're here available because it's not on the bulletin board anymore. So there you go.
Wow.
Corey, out of those, did you say you prosecuted 5 people?
I think I have to go through the numbers, but I think it's 5, yeah.
Were any of those locals?
Well, one was living here at the time, but he was not a local. He's from Anaconda, and he's kind of been a fly-by-night guy that's been around. So he's on the run right now. and we've successfully, one of them, we did a deferred prosecution agreement, and last Friday or Thursday, he paid off the full amount. He's in Colorado now, but all the others, we've gotten convictions, and they're paying, except for one guy has pled guilty and then has now split and has missed his sentencing date, and we have an arrest warrant out for him. So we've been able to successfully prosecute him, but this is a good example of how it's hard to get your money after the fact. And that one's gonna be, that's over $10,000 that he owes.
Thank you. We'll move on to the,
I got
oh,
some.
go ahead.
So this is not on our agenda, and it's something that I just received, and probably more of a message for our cattle producers, is Montana Department of Livestock is holding a series of informational meetings on brucellosis regulations, and the requirement for brucellosis vaccination for female cattle and domestic bison has been extended to Bighorn, Broadwater, Carbon, Jefferson, Stillwater, and Sweetgrass counties. So that meeting will be held here in Broadwater County on September 10th, 8 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. at the Broadwater County 4-H building. So I just wanted to get that information out to folks that may not know that.
Thank you.
Move on to this, excuse me, appointment of child interdisciplinary team members. A resolution ordering the creation of the Broadwater County Interdisciplinary Child Information and School Safety Team. Whereas Section 52.2.211, Section 1 MCA states, County Commissioners shall ensure the formation of an interdisciplinary child information and school safety team. Whereas Section 52.2.211.1 further states that such team includes representatives authorized by any of the following: Youth Court, County Attorney, Department of Public Health and Human Services, County Superintendent of Schools, Sheriff, Chief of any police force, any Board of Trustees of a public school district operating within the boundaries of the county, and Departments of Corrections. Whereas Section 52.2.2.112 further directs that team officials may also cooperate with officials from other counties to form a regional interdisciplinary child information and school safety team and are to be formalized by written agreement. Whereas the interdisciplinary child information and school safety team will operate under the further guidance of 52.2.2.11.3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Whereas 52.2.2.11.9 requires the County of Superintendent Schools shall provide to the Office of Public Instruction a current copy of any written agreement under this section no later than September 1st. Therefore, it be resolved by the order of the Broadwater County Commissioners, they hereby form the County Interdisciplinary Child Information and School Safety Team. Members authorized designees: Youth Court, Juvenile Probation, County Attorney, Victims Advocate, Sheriff's Office Representative, Montana Department of Health, Human Services, Child Protective Services, Lewis and Clark County Child Advocacy Center, High School Principal, K-8 Principal, Elementary Dean of Students, K-8 Counselor, and the High School Counselor. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
I will move to approve this resolution for the creation of the Broadwater County Interdisciplinary Child Information and School Safety Team.
I am not gonna second, I am gonna make a comment though. My work with the Youth Justice Council bears this out. I also wrote all the letters to formalize and get our group set for the interdisciplinary team. Absolutely support this 110%. However, I'm real uncomfortable with our bypassing policies and MCA and adopting resolutions without the proper public notice, having the resolutions available for public review prior to our meeting. So I am not going to participate in this vote. I am going to ask that we follow the process and not vote on it today in this manner.
So can we postpone this until next time?
It needs to, per 7/1/2121, it needs to be noticed in the paper for 2 weeks. that resolution needs to be in the clerk and recorder's office for anybody to come and review it. So we could do it when you get back on the 3rd.
Okay, that's for under no later than September 1st is the deadline.
I think July was the deadline, I understand as well. I still think we need to follow the process. 72121 requires 2 weeks. They've already been meeting. Our following MCA does not preclude their work from happening. It simply ensures that we're following policy and law.
I guess we can table this until the 3rd then.
Sure.
So we'll table this until the 3rd and advertise this in the paper.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
real quick question, is or will the resolution that you're speaking about be available for public review? Then you're now going to postpone this. And a follow-up question on that, on behalf of Redoubt News, is there a program or policy already in place on how this team will work and what their goals and mission is, to get better clarification of what that's all about?
Corey, can you answer that for him?
Yeah, a couple things. First, what is the statute you're citing, Commissioner Obert, regarding 2 weeks' notice?
712121.
7-1-2121? I don't think that can't be it. Part 21 is business and agriculture livestock regulation. 7-1-
2121, I can read it to you.
I guess while we're waiting, so the second question you had was,
Here it is, it's 712121, publication and content of notice, proof of publication, subsection 6. The notice must be published twice, with at least 6 days separating each publication. And this is, our policy spells out what we do with resolutions as well.
all right, well, so this is the same statute we dealt with last week on Copper City Road. So that is specifically when a county is required to publicize notice in a newspaper. It's not the same as giving notice of every action that you take. And there's a specific statute that says that a resolution can be passed upon public notice and comment after a single time. So I don't have my book with me, I didn't realize this was gonna come up. But I don't think you need 2 weeks' notice. But
Could you please provide us with that statute, because our policy and practice has been, all resolutions, that they are advertised twice in the paper per 7-1-2121, that they are available for the public to review prior to coming to this meeting. If we just need 1 week, then perhaps we can take care of it next week before the September 1 deadline, but we need that statute. But we still do need to make this available for public review.
okay, well, I've been a big advocate of making documents available for public review. As you know, I've asked you many, many times to do that. I'm not gonna do this on the fly, Commissioners. I'm gonna get back to you with what the statute actually says. What was your question, Tim?
Whether there's a policy regarding how the process will work as far as what this team is really going to be doing, what their goals and missions are?
So, it's currently in statute.
You'd have to read the statute.
Hang on. So the statute is 52-2-211, County Interdisciplinary Child Information and School Safety Team. And it lays out, in fact, it says specifically, the purpose of the team and written agreement is to facilitate the exchange and sharing of information that one or more team members may be able to use in serving a child in the course of their professions and occupations, including but not limited to abused or neglected children, delinquent youth, youth in need of intervention, information related to issues of school safety. And then it can be provided to us and disseminated to a team member under different provisions, specifically dealing with youth court and specifically dealing with youth, I guess it would be called juvenile probation, and also specifically dealing with a child that's involved with a social worker, like a foster care situation. It may not be disseminated beyond the organizations or departments that have an authorized member on the team. So what it's used for is basically that purpose, both for the school people, social workers, juvenile probation, my office, the victim advocate office, the sheriff's office, as we deal with. A lot of times there's kids involved. Maybe there's a family that has a criminal action or a criminal case, and it affects the kids. The kids are involved, and so providing services to the kids while we also deal with the family. That's the purpose of it. So that statute's been in place since 1991 with some amendments from then on. What this bill did, and I provided an email and possibly a memo about a month ago on this that I can bring back to the public. It's public information. But the amendment from the last session was it simply said the county commissioners have to ensure that this is in place. There was some county somewhere in the state that didn't have one in place. So the legislature passed the law simply saying county commissioners make sure one's in place. This one's that we've had has been in place for many years.
As long as I can remember.
Yeah, at least the last 15 years. So this is simply recodifying, that membership is recodifying the membership that's been on this team doing this job for years.
Thank you. And I just follow up statement. Reason I asked the question for clarification is because I know everybody that's in government right now has seen a tremendous upswell of issues with, I'm going to probably get the wrong acronym, CPS, Child Protective Services, where there's a lot of concern about overreach and exceeding the rights of these children, etc. So it's Readout News has been getting hammered with requests to do stories on that, and I just want to make sure we're on the front page of where everything's at here in Broadwater County, as a citizen, as a deliverer of information for the people.
Well, and I would just say that's the opposite of my experience. My experience is we can't get them to do enough on cases where there's a serious problem, and whether because of workload, stretch thin, staffing, we're way out here in rural Broadwater County. It's not been overreach. It's been we need you to do more than you're doing.
Agreed. Both sides of that story need improvement with that Department of Health and Human Services. Thank you.
Corey, is this likened to the China petition, the China or Child in Need of Assistance programs?
I'm not aware
About
of.
the same thing?
I'm not
Because
aware
you
of
said
that.
it's been around forever.
Yeah, but
I
we
know.
always call it the Child Protective, we call it CPT, Child Protection Team.
Okay.
So I'm not aware of what you're talking about, but it's always just been referred to as a Child Protection Team.
Okay.
Thank you for your indulgence.
Table that until next week. And we'll move on to the land acquisition project, sign the contract with Attorney Peter Simon for a biannual report to the National Park Service. This is a contract with the Peter Simon, Broadwater County Trust Board to complete the federal report for the Canyon Ferry Reservoir towns and parcels and submit them to the National Park Service for biannual review and approval. Is there a motion to approve the contract?
Also move.
Is there a second? Motion's been made and seconded to approve contract with Peter Simons for the Broadwater County Trust Board in Broadwater County. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I just got an email this morning from Peter and David Siegenthaler with National Park about the deadline for that. National Park Service he's very busy, and he said if we don't meet that deadline, don't worry about it, because he would not be able to look at it for weeks anyhow.
Okay.
So I think Peter and I, our email was, let's make the end of September the goal,
Okay.
so we have a little bit.
And weren't they able to ask for an extension if they needed it too, Debbie?
It looks like now we don't need it.
Okay.
That's what the National Park Service guy said. He can't even look at it for a few weeks, so I think we're good.
Thank you.
Good to know, thanks Debbie.
Okay, 1020, Brandon Harris, authorization to order new sheriff's office vehicles before end of August deadline.
Not that it makes a lot of difference, that deadline got moved up to September, so first part of September. So, we're requesting to purchase two, Chevy Police Interceptor Tahoes, for the Sheriff's Office patrol fleet. And, we'd like to move one of the old Explorers into our transport division as the van's getting run around a lot, and it's kind of a lot to take when you just got one doctor's appointment and one inmate. So it is nice to have that other car to replace that Chevy Impala. We haven't made a decision on the other Explorer, whether it's gonna be the Explorer or a truck. We're trying to talk with the sheriff and see what's gonna be best utilized at the sheriff's office with that. The cost, so everybody knows, is $39,522, and that is the state contract through Denny Menholt Chevrolet in Billings. Would like that per vehicle. The reason why, sorry, go ahead, Commissioner.
What kind of shape is the other vehicle that you have, the spare vehicle?
It's in good shape, but it needs to be rotated out of the sheriff's office and put back to maybe a more civilian use, or just some normal driving. And I think you could get a few more years out of it, but for police vehicle operations, definitely needs to be rotated out. It's starting to spend a lot of time in the shop. Things kind of keep happening.
Is that something that Mike Conkey can use for DES?
We have talked with Mike on whether, you know, we do have a truck as well that I wouldn't really want to, it's got lower miles, and I think that we could either use this Explorer as more of an administration vehicle, and Mike could use the truck a little bit more than what we could use it for, but he did mention that he did have a grant available that might help out our CIP fund, so, you know, just kinda looking at that, and obviously have to have some discussion with the sheriff on what he's want to do, so we just haven't made any decisions with that yet.
Okay.
The two, if I may, the two that we have are, the two interceptors that we're looking at are both over 100,000, we're getting close to 100,000. And one's over, or both over. And I talked to Hedstrom, both of them are due for a 100,000 mile redo or whatever we wanna call it. And he said, if you're gonna get rid of them, he goes, let me know, before we get down that path, that it's expensive to do that 100,000 mile update. And I said, well, Brandon's gonna meet with commissioners on Monday, so there's a conversation to have with him on Thursday or Friday last week. So that's, you know, the one, it does spend about every 2 weeks, it seems like it's sitting down there at Hedstrom's to get worked on again. And so, that gets expensive, shop hours aren't cheap, so, that's where, I know one's in dire need to go away, and I don't know about the other one, but we got a couple that could find their way out of our fleet, but we just don't have anything to replace it with, so.
Could you sell them?
Oh, yeah.
Go towards that, well, if nobody else needs them in a different
So,
department,
yeah, I mean, it's,
you sell them and go towards the,
we usually trade them in, or they can go to public auction as well.
yeah.
Up there, what, Copart, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
I don't even know if they're, but normally we just trade them in, or we,
Yeah.
you know, rotate them out, like, one Durango went to Allison Costa, yeah, for 4-H. We've given 2 vehicles to the city, for Randy Munson now in the last, what, 8 years, I guess. And, so we try to find homes for them, but, yeah. And some are just, they just are down on the road dead,
Yeah,
so, you know.
that's how you buying Chevy?
And then the reasoning for the deadline, the 1st of September, it's not, I don't know if it makes that much difference in August 1st of September, but, is that Chevy's switching over the body style and, you know, the specs on the 2021 Tahoes, and that would really put us out over a year by the time those are made. And then, once they get built, then you have the cages and things like that that all have to be reconfigured. And we experienced that with the Ford that we bought 2 years ago. And it was a pain in the butt to have a vehicle sitting there that you can't use because none of the stuff fits it. So, those police vehicle companies have to get those vehicles and build the cages in the vehicle, and then they put them into production. So that's why we want to get on these before deadline.
When do we actually see those vehicles? March?
Yeah, it won't be until, they'll probably get built roughly October, November, and, yeah, usually like January, March, I would say. Takes several months for them to get built and then shipped out here to us. We wouldn't be writing a check until later this year, or next year.
We've already, given the money for this, it's just really housekeeping. I don't know that we need a vote, but I'm happy to move to support the plan. And, let Brandon move forward as described.
Motion been made and second to allow Brandon to move forward with purchasing these 2 new vehicles. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Thank you, Brandon.
All right, thank you, Commissioner.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question? Sometimes across from the courthouse in that parking lot, there are 8 county vehicles that seem to just sit there. Is that something we could, have less of, or something, or are they all used, or what's the scoop there?
That one over there.
Yeah.
I don't know who all those vehicles belong to.
I don't either, but if we're
But,
just
you
having
know,
8 sit around, maybe we could,
Well,
so,
they all get used at certain times.
I think one's a maintenance vehicle, isn't it? The grade 4. Maintenance.
I can't.
The grade 4, I know where that one's at. There's like a grade 4 that sits in there, that's maintenance, and then there's a maroon Focus that the commissioners bought for county employees' travel. That's been 10 years ago, probably.
right.
And then there's Allison's Durango that we shuffled down out of her patrol division, so she could do her extension and 4-H stuff. Some of those vehicles, yeah, they sit around, they don't get used much, but, when you start paying 58.5 cents per mile for somebody who's a personal vehicle, that tends to get expensive as well, so, I don't know what else sits over there though, but.
White Explorer.
Which one?
The White Explorer.
Oh, gosh, that was a long time ago too.
Just
Yeah, time to start cleaning up, huh?
Don't look at my back parking lot, it looks like an evidence locker, so.
Mr. Delbert?
Yeah.
Could we go back to that other discussion? I think I can briefly answer that question that was raised about publication and notice.
Okay.
So the publication and notice statute, 7/1/2121, says whenever a local government other than a municipality is required to give notice by publication, this applies. So the part about publish something twice in the newspaper applies. That is not every instance of action. An example of that is under 7-5-2301. If a county is going to enter into a contract in excess of $80,000, it says it may not be entered into by a county governing body without first publishing a notice calling for bids the notice must be published as provided in 7-1-2121, which is what I just referred to. That is not the requirement for all government actions. If you go to 7-5-121, resolutions may be submitted and adopted at a single meeting of the governing body.
Which statute was that again?
Which one, the last one?
Yeah.
7-5-121. And I specifically looked at that several months ago on some issue where there was a resolution, and the question was in my mind, do I need to do this over a multi-week process? And that statute specifically addressed it. There used to be a much more extensive body of law governing county resolutions. That was under 7-5-2201. That was repealed. Most of it was repealed in 1979, and then the last two parts were repealed in 1993. So a lot of the more extensive discussions or requirements of resolutions have been repealed. So that's the basis of why you don't have to, everything you want to do, you don't have to publish it 2 weeks in advance. Otherwise, you would, every week's agenda, you'd have to be publishing those 2 weeks in advance rather than the notice requirements that you follow.
I think you misunderstood me. I wasn't talking about everything that appears on the agenda. I was strictly talking about resolutions. Our policy states that for resolutions, we follow 7-1-2121. If this can apply 7-5-121, then that is good. We still need to have the resolution for folks for 1 week though, but not just produced in a meeting. But we could go ahead and do this if we want next week or on the 3rd. I'd be fine with that, but we do need to address our policy and make that change because our policy follows 2121. So that is what we approve every year with the New Year's resolution, and that we also follow 7-1-2121. So if we don't have to do all that, that's good, but we need to change our policy that states that we're following the other statute if this is the statute we want to follow. We can't just spring it into meetings. And that was my point with what I said earlier. I understand that public notice, as described in 7-1-2121, does not refer to every item on the agenda. I'm strictly talking about resolutions of the commission.
So
So
I guess
thank
what
you
I
for
would,
that. That's
I
good
guess what I would
information.
say is, why don't, it would help if you would clarify then what items, what decisions you make that are requiring a resolution and which ones do not require a resolution. Resolutions really only, if you look at the statute, are required for things like your meeting time and place, your standing policies that you do in January, your personnel policy, or whatever it might be. Those resolutions, and I'll give you an example, the meeting time and place, that one is specifically required to be done by a resolution. And then it says that if you were going to change your meeting time and place, there's a certain amount of notice you have to give in advance prior to doing that. Not if you have a special meeting, but if you have instead of Monday mornings, you're gonna start meeting on Tuesday mornings, you have to give a certain amount of public notice. I think that would clarify what items are required for resolution and which ones are not. Every action that you take isn't required in every resolution.
Okay, so we can move on to 10:30, Mike Conkey, MSU School of Architecture contract for emergency services building, Wheatland area.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I emailed you a copy of this contract. I also put a copy in your desk this morning. This deals with the Southern Broadwater County Emergency Services Building project. It's kind of the concept we've been talking about for a couple of years now. And we used the university architectural students during a class earlier this year, in the first part of the summer, to design a building for a possible ambulance building. And that was really good. 2 students participated. That didn't cost us any money. Now the university, we've approached the university to do some work for us, and they want to run it through their Center for Community design, community design center, and then they sent us this contract. And it's just here today to let you look over it, everything in red they wanted us to look at, and fees and stuff. We're not really too sure what building site we're gonna use down there yet. One of the sites we looked at, we're talking about just north of Ron's on US Highway 287, the other one's down on Price Lane, a little bit across from that. I think a greenhouse, I don't know what they call that, greenhouse. So those are different sites, so we're not ready to move forward on this, I just want to bring it to your attention, got it on the agenda. The university professor, she's not gonna be able to make next Monday's meeting, because that's the first day of classes for MSU, first semester. And so we need a little work on this contract, need work, kind of a work session, kind of figure out what some of these terms they're talking about, and see if we can nail it down what we want them to do.
Okay. Have you sent a copy of this to Corey yet?
Oh, I haven't, but I sure
Yeah.
will. I might, yeah, I think I did send it to the first email, but I'll give him a.
We just wanna make sure he reviews it, and I'm sure he'll have some comment on it.
Sure, absolutely. I think it's their standard contract. I've been trying to get a hold of the professor. She is like a lot of university professors, and someone's missing in action between classes and stuff. But they'll get back to their schedule starting next month. And I might have to go down and visit with them, ask some questions. They have some concepts in here that I'm not familiar with. Architectural concepts. So we have an understanding what we're gonna get from them for this project.
And I'm guessing at some point before they started this, we're gonna meet together as this group that we down in the south end, and everybody that's involved,
Right.
to kind of,
Once we get this nailed down, we get a
Yeah.
contract, yes. I think they'll assign a couple students, I don't know how many. They haven't even had class yet. We start next Monday, see how many students. They got several different projects they're working on. See, the ones we had before, there was only 2 students in that summer class. That was a half a session, half a semester class. And they were graduate students. I don't know what they have for a class load. They probably have everybody registered, but I don't know what projects the students are gonna select. They have other projects, they've got community projects around the state. Yeah, I think we should sit down with that group. Southern Broadwater County we meet with. I think we need to visit with fire. I'm trying to get on the agenda for the Three Forks Rural Fire District Board of Trustees in that area. And same with the ambulance board of trustees, kind of see what they're. I think right now, all they want is two vehicles, like a brush truck and a tender. Fire department wants, ambulance just wants a place to put one ambulance. And then, of course, the sheriff's office, we got a little handout I gave out before, the previous main thing the sheriff's office needs to accommodate them. So it's just a concept we're kind of floating around. Yes, Commissioner?
Will they design that to eventually put a structure truck in there?
Absolutely. Sure, it'll be a design for a big structure truck, yes.
Okay.
12 by 12 or 14 by 14 doors, whatever the standard is for that.
And Mike, the $2,500 looks really reasonable. Do you have it in your budget?
Nope. I don't have that in
Any
my
talk
budget.
on where that will come from?
Well, last time we had a meeting, you visited a little bit about, I think you mentioned, Commissioner, about the help turn lane money.
Oh, okay,
yeah,
all right.
That's all I don't know anything about that, and I don't know what that is.
I think that's what we
Okay.
discussed
Okay.
as well.
No, I haven't paid money.
Okay.
And I don't know.
Well,
if
that's
you
what
want-
I thought, but I didn't remember.
I don't know if you even want to put it in DES, and you probably want the Board of County Commissioners. Not mine.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, you're just a contact at the moment.
Yeah, I just had a little coordinator.
All right, thanks, Mike.
Any
Nice
questions?
work, Mike.
Anybody?
Thanks,
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the 10:45, Mary Hendrickson, Public Works Director, intercamp loan request for solid waste canisters.
All right, good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Morning.
So the reason I'm here this morning is to request your approval to pursue an intercap loan so that we can purchase some 20-yard cans and dome lids for solid waste that we could then use for canister rentals. Right now, all of the canisters that we have, save 3 40-yard cans, are used. And the 40-yard cans that we have at the canister site on Cedar Street, we use as rotation cans. But I did have a call, I had 2 calls last week for canister rentals. And the people that needed cans were okay with taking the big 40-yard cans. They can access the can from the back instead of from the top. But these 20-yard cans are, just looking here to see, 50 inches tall. And so they're like the green cans that we have for cardboard at some of these sites right now. And I have a message into Rural Steel in Caldwell, Idaho. They make them. They gave me a quote last May, but that quote included 10-yard and 20-yard cans, so they're gonna give me a new quote. But I anticipate, I spoke to her this morning, there shouldn't be much of a variation in cost from May to now, or March to now. So we're looking at about $8,100 a can, and Steve and I sat down, looked at the business that we've done to date prior to making our changes to solid waste here in the county. And if we had 6 cans, we could put a can out at Dry Gulch for newspaper, because we do collect, or not newspaper, apologize, cardboard. We do collect a lot of cardboard. And we don't have anything like that out at Dry Gulch. And then we would have cans to rotate for use. And so we're looking at a total of, my calculation is $48,624. And I would like to utilize the intercap loan program for that. Right now their interest rate is 3.37%, and I think it's been that rate for 9 years or something, looked like.
No, it was 1% not too long ago.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's, I think like just the last 2 years, but it's been
Okay.
holding steady down.
Okay, so I just went through that calculator, and if we carried that note out for 5 years, it would be about $10,000 a year. We could pay it off sooner than that, but just to give us a little wiggle room on that, I would propose a 5-year note on that. So I would like your consideration and approval to seek an intercap loan for solid waste for 6 20-yard canisters and lids.
What was the total again, Mary?
$48,624. And then we'll have freight, I apologize. It looks like freight on what I had originally proposed, it was 10 cans was $5,200. I'm sure freight rates have changed. That'll be in the quote that she gives me, so it'll be a little more than that.
These same cans be used for your contractors too?
Yes,
That kind of.
that's the primary
Primary
reason.
reason,
Yes,
yeah.
it is. It is, I know that, I've heard some things from people that have contracted with Tri-County, for instance. Tri-County's boundary is just south of Townsend here. And, people pay a lot more than what we were charged. We were charged the $65 per ton rate, which is our tonnage rate right now, for construction waste. And, people have paid over $1,000 to get a can and delivered and disposed of. And I think that for us, people wouldn't have to pay that sort of charge.
We've been working with Mary and talking about this for quite a while. I move that we grant Mary's request for the intercap loan for 6 20-yard canister cans and no lids, as proposed.
You're just proposing, you're just asking for permission to proceed for the loan, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay, and then once you get those terms, you'll come back to us.
I will need your approval for that, yes,
Okay.
before we finally submit it.
Yeah. So is that your motion, just to proceed forward with the loan, not the actual purchase, right?
No, we have to start with the loan first.
Right.
So, yeah, my, motion is, for step one.
I'll second.
Motion been made and seconded to allow Mary to pursue an intercap loan for the purchase of 6 20-yard canisters for solid waste. Is there any further discussion?
How's this gonna be passed along? Who's gonna pay for that?
It'll come out of the solid waste funds.
Okay, is that gonna raise our,
No, it's not,
okay,
it's
cause,
not.
and you're the trash lady?
I'm the trash lady and the public works director.
Okay, so I would talk to you about, since this whole solid waste debacle, I was invited to learn more about my departments. The doors were locked that day when I came down here, and 5 of us sat outside the front door wondering why nobody was
You
open.
can, my office is down here.
Right,
Please come and
well,
see
we
me.
found that out, cause I called the Broadwater reporter, and Bobby said, it's their meeting, it's downstairs. So, the whole thing with this solid waste that I'm upset about is that my canisters behind my house that I pay for are getting filled before they get picked up.
Please come and talk to me,
Yeah.
okay? I'd be happy to
Is this
talk
the
to you.
wrong time to do that?
Right now it is, yes, I'm trying to take care of this one piece of business and then I'll be in my office.
Okay, so you're asking for more canisters to go down to the drop-offs? Is that that's what you're asking for?
I'm asking them to approve my step one process
To get the loan,
to get the loan, to
But
get more cans.
to get more cans to
at
go
the
down to the
canister
drop-off
sites.
sites?
Yes,
Okay,
and for contractors
okay,
to use. We have a lot of contractors in the county, as you know, we have a lot of construction going on. We don't have canisters
specifically for them.
that we can get to them, that we can rent out to them and get that revenue. So right
Okay.
now, that revenue is going to Helena, it's not coming
Okay.
to our county.
Yeah,
I would prefer that we get that
that
revenue.
makes sense, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm just, you know,
Yep.
I'm new to all this,
Yep.
so,
you
Just
bet.
trying
So
to
please,
clarify.
please come and talk to me,
okay,
okay?
yeah,
And one thing you have to understand, Joe, we don't have anything to do with the city garbage.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's why I said, how's that gonna get paid for? You know, is that gonna go on my bill now?
No.
Or- Yeah, county's different than city?
No.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for explaining.
Yeah.
Yes, Debbie?
Mike, I have a question. Mary, do you have any estimate on revenue from the contractors for these new canisters?
I could tell you what, I would have to go pull it out of our accounting database, and I could give you what we got last year. But, you know, we've had, I would say, we have at least 2 calls a week, okay? Let's say 2 calls a week between when the weather's nice, so we'll say May through September, 2 calls a week. I can't rent those out. We can get about 3 tons in a can, so that's, let's roughly say minimum $125 a can, plus a delivery fee and a pickup. So $175, $200 a can. People can have them for 3 days. We do have, if they go, or 4 days, if they go 5 days or beyond, there's a weekly rental rate. And so we're looking at, you know, not only the disposal revenue, but the delivery and the pickup and the rental on that as well.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
yeah, you bet.
Any further comments? Take a vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same, motion carries.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mary.
See, 1050 Teresa Munson, Public Health Nurse Memorandum of Understanding between Broadwater Health Center and Broadwater County Public Health Department.
Morning.
Morning.
So this is a fairly new document, this memorandum of understanding. Last year, the CDC put into place a new healthcare coalition. This is kind of getting off of its feet between public health and hospitals and other urgent care centers. And so I went to some training a couple weeks ago and realized that our department did not have this, and a lot of other counties didn't have them as well. An understanding between their hospital and their public health department that they would work together in the event of a public health emergency. So it's just an understanding that public health and the hospital will work together for animal bite reporting, investigation, disease reporting, investigation, follow-up, health assessment and promotion, increasing vaccination rates, public health emergency preparedness training and exercising, and that's basically the nuts and bolts with the healthcare coalition. They found out that the hospitals and the public health were not playing well together pretty much everywhere, but we're focusing on Montana, obviously. So, they had some examples of just a general MOU between public health and the hospital, and when I talked to the director of the Public Health Emergency Preparedness Program, he thought that we should get ours into place before any such takeovers or change in management. Billings Clinic and St. Pete's both have these with those, or, you know, with their respective counties, and they're very familiar with them. So their suggestion was that we go ahead and get this signed with the Broadwater Health Center and Wellness Clinic, and then we'll redo one in the future when everything is said and done. So,
That was my question, if we're gonna have to
yes,
redo it, okay.
yeah,
Very good.
we will. So that, we already have an MOU with the hospital lab to store our vaccines in the event of a long power outage, because they're the only ones that have backup generators. We do have a generator we can start in our facility, but you know, that would be for a limited amount of time. If we had to store our vaccines for, you know, say 2 or 3 days, we would transport them to the hospital. They're the only ones that have temperature regulated refrigeration, and that's what we have to have for our vaccines. So we do have that, and that is updated every year. But so this one is actually a new document for our county. That's all I need.
I think this is excellent, thank you. Didn't realize the CDC was initiating this, but I thought it was all your brainchild. So kudos to you. I move that we sign the MOU as presented.
Is there a second?
A second.
Motion been made, seconded to approve memorandum of understanding between the Broadwater Health Center and Wellness Clinic and the Broadwater County Public Health Department. Any further comment? Take a vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Okay, 11 o'clock, let's see, sign the buy-sell agreement to purchase the Opportunity Bank for the county annex. Did Corey give us anything?
Not here, we'll grab it or something.
Corey had a question on this attorney fees. He was gonna contact American Federal about it.
Okay.
And it kind of threw me for a loop, because I went through there, it was like, oh my God, containers out there, where'd they move? They don't want my money. So they just merged together, there's no, but it's still called Opportunity? Yeah.
State Bank of Townsend and Division of Opportunity. Right. For 2 years, yeah. That's simple.
Well, it's, yeah, hopefully they don't do it again.
Yeah.
We should get that building really cheap then.
200 down, but she said 125, and all of a sudden it's 200, and interest stuff.
Oh, wow.
No, it's not. Oh, I'm sorry, you're good.
Yeah, we need to open up our own banking business.
Did you get a chance to talk to her?
I left him a message, I have not heard back from him,
Okay.
but did Commissioner Folker tell you what I told him?
Did you, what was the line, was it 21?
So paragraph 21, the agreement's fine, it's well written and everything. The only issue is, and I've always asked for this on every contract, so I think we should maintain the consistency, is paragraph 21 is, if there's any lawsuit between us and the seller to enforce any parts of this agreement, the prevailing party shall be entitled to all costs of lawsuit, including attorney's fees. And under Montana law, ordinarily both sides pay unless an agreement specifically allows attorney's fees. It never makes sense for us to have to agree to this because we have attorney cost of attorney in litigation is either going to be me or it's going to be covered under our MACO insurance. So if we are bearing our own, that's the kind of the best deal for us. If we have to pay theirs, if we were to lose, which would only happen if it was a bad faith thing, but it would be very expensive for us. So what I have suggested on every contract is that regardless of the outcome of any lawsuit, each side bears its own costs and attorney's fees. So I told Scott Spee, who's their attorney, that was my recommended change from the current language. Other than that, I don't have any other issues with the agreement. I guess in light of our previous conversation we just had, it might make sense to do a 2-week advertisement on this since it is a contract for $150,000.
This is not a resolution. It has been in the clerk and recorder's office for a week for anyone to review, and it's been on the agenda no less than 3 or 4 times. So again, just sticking with the policy that we have. If we want to change the policy, that's fine. We can change the policy. The policy we have would not require that a contract be treated as a resolution because it is not a resolution. This has had quite a bit of the ability for the public to review it. I don't think that we should continue to delay getting it signed. We've signed one already, but this has changed because we're going with the Bureau, or the Board of Investment loan. So I would concur with Corey's change to the attorney fees. I do appreciate that he has talked to Scott, and I think it's important that maybe we change that language and sign it with the change in language. If they are opposed to that, then we can go direct back to the drawing board, but at least we would have made a good faith effort.
So since we're recommending a change, we shouldn't sign the current draft we have until we get their agreement on it. But
No, but couldn't we move to sign and have you make the change? And then, since you've already talked to their attorney, give them back the contract with the change. If they're opposed to that, then it's null and void. If they accept your language change, especially since it's grounded in Montana law, then we've done our due diligence.
Well, so I left them a message, I haven't actually spoken, and I don't know that they're going to agree to it. My sense is that, the best plan is that we actually have an agreement on the document before we sign it. I did want to follow up on the contracts. So the contracts that I'm referring to that are over 8,000 require specific printed notice would not be this same type. Those are for contracts for the purchase of a vehicle, road machinery, or other machinery, apparatus, appliance, equipment, or materials or supplies for construction, repair, or maintenance. So this is purchase of a building is not in that same category. So either way, I recommend let's get the actual agreement that they're good with before we sign it. That'd be my recommendation.
Wouldn't you recommend that you would post that again since the language has changed?
So when a commission takes any document that they've given notice to, they're not limited from their ability to make an amendment at the time
Without
of
us
adoption.
knowing.
Right, they don't have to like, let's say you make an amendment, whether it's a typo or this would be a substantive change, you don't have to repost that amended document for 2 more weeks. By giving notice of this is what the issue is, anyone that's interested can come here, and they do have the power to make adjustments before they sign it. So I think, I would recommend you could continue to give this notice 1 more week, so long as they agree to our change, and you'd have the power to make that amendment and that change and approval at the next meeting. Otherwise, any amendment would necessarily delay your action forever, so.
Would we just vote to approve this contract with that, if that change is accepted then?
You could do that, but I would recommend you don't sign it until we have the actual signed document, or the actual final document.
Okay.
And then, so if they say no, absolutely not, then I'll come back to you and we'll have to figure out what we're gonna do. It's unlikely.
So is there a second to approve the agreement?
Yeah, I'll second it on, that we wait until we get the correct language and then we'll sign the document at some time.
The motion's been made and seconded to approve the agreement with Opportunity Bank on the Opportunity Bank building, not to sign the agreement until we receive the new agreement with section 21 stricken or rewritten. Is there any further discussion?
So for clarity, we're approving based on approval of that change.
Yes.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
What is the purchase price? I've heard all kinds of figures.
$150,000.
And what is the interest rate?
The 3% Mary just
3%
mentioned.
intercap loan, right?
Yeah, it was 3 point something. I
That was
remember.
stated differently also in the beginning, so we're just curious.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Let's see, 11 o'clock, fiscal county budget, Debbie Cully, finance officer. Set COLA, department budget, mills, entitlement share, salary matrix, make or market adjustments, job descriptions. Okay. Okay,
You guys received our valuations.
yep.
We ran the tax levy requirements limitation sheets. We plugged those into the budgets. And there was an increase that the recommended COLA is sustainable. We're able to levy about 4% of the net and gross proceeds on new homes. So that's helped. So despite the mills being slightly lower, the value of those mills were more significant than the previous year. which actually has generated more revenue than the mills themselves would have by themselves. So you guys are waiting to make decisions then on what the valuations were. And once you make your decisions, then you can proceed with working towards actual final budget hearing on the 3rd of September.
Debbie, the tax levy requirements reports that you emailed us had the COLA that was passed by the county compensation board already built in.
Correct.
The 3.9 is what we're going with for the COLA.
That's what the board recommended, yes.
So, we need to vote on that so that Debbie can build the budget. Not build it, but solidify what she's already done. With that, we still have 14% reserves in the general fund and 9% in public safety. Both are looking a lot stronger this year than last year for sure. One thing with that COLA, same story as with the centrally assessed hit that we took last year. Debbie, can you explain, I know I'm kind of hitting you without notice, but can you explain how that works, how the centrally assessed money that we lost last year isn't a repeated loss, it's already been realized in the budget, and how the COLA this year isn't an increase in people's taxes by any stretch, and that it's in the budget for this year and carries on to future years, just like the centrally assessed?
Centrally assessed is a one-time hit, just like new growth. It's in the year, they recognize it, and it's done. So all the growth we recognized last year offset the centrally assessed, so we were stale. That's done, they didn't do it again this year, so this year's growth is on new growth that they recognized this year. And that's just what allows the county to collect the revenue they need to operate and maintain their services.
So the COLA is essentially being paid by the new people who've moved to the county.
Some, but not necessarily true.
Okay.
COLA could come from, even if we didn't have new growth, it would be based on the value that they're assessing. So everybody's home appreciates, or should appreciate, based on their income, their improvements to it. That just increases the value. What the new growth does is instead of 10 homes sharing the money, you've got 12 or 15 homes sharing that amount of revenue. And then it just increases what everybody gets to bill, what the county gets to charge in taxes on their tax bills.
As determined by Department of Revenue.
As determined by Department of Revenue. We don't have anything to do with that.
So at the county compensation board, we talked about if we had been able to give just the CPI, which is the consumer price index of last year and this year, it would have been 4.4%, because it was 2.1, and 2.3, or 2.3 and 2.1, right?
2.1 and 2.3.
Thank you. 3.9 is less than that still, which means our folks are still behind, but 3.9 at least brings them closer to where they should be and would have been. It also helps us, and that was the argument made by our citizen members, we have to keep an eye on retention and attraction. We have to be able to attract good people to work for us. So that's why the argument at the county compensation board was to start at 4%. The members said, well, for such a round number, it sounds better to go to 3.9, and then the counter proposal was, well, let's do 3.95, and we settled at 3.9. So, I would move that at least for the COLA, or not at least, but just the first agenda item here, that we set COLA for fiscal year 20 at 3.9%.
Is there a second?
Yeah, when we have hired some great folks, we need to take care of them, so I second that.
And all of our budgets are figured on that number, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Until we just got our valuations, that's what we're setting, until we got valuations to know if we needed, like last year, we had it set, then had to take it away because they were stagnant and we couldn't have afforded or sustained the COLA last year. So that's why they were froze.
So even with this COLA, we're still establishing, we're still putting some money into reserves in most departments.
Mhm. General fund is 14% this year, last year it was 11%.
Okay.
And there were several of the separate independent funds with their valuations, like roads, mosquito, weed. Their values were high enough that to cover their expenses and their taxable revenue, they had money to put into their CIPs. So they didn't exceed their 33%, which is what the goal is for everybody. We're getting there, it's just slower than others.
Is there any further discussion on the COLA?
I have a question.
Yes.
So one of the things that we talk about every year, and I wasn't at this particular county compensation board meeting, I had to get out of town for work, but an issue we talk about every year, and and I'm concerned that it's continuing to be a greater problem every year, is the fact that when we do a COLA at 3.9%, and that translates, and that's from the county compensation board meeting, that is establishing a COLA for the elected officials. And that's all their purview of their discussion is. But, of course, county commission generally says we're gonna apply that fairly to everybody. So if elected officials get 3.9%, then all the employees do. The problem is, as we know from statutory restrictions on the salaries for law enforcement, is that they do not get that much money. The sheriff gets that. The undersheriff is capped at 95% of his wages, and then it goes down from there. So, year after year, what's happening is, everybody in the county is getting a certain number. The deputies are necessarily, mandatorily getting less. Where that's causing a problem, number one is probably just for them to know, hey, we're getting less of a raise than everybody else. But then secondly, is within the employee structure within the sheriff's office, and I'm gonna stop talking on this in a minute and ask the sheriff if he wants to talk about it, is it affects how detention officers get more of a raise over certain years than deputies. And there's times, certainly right now, dispatch, we're all agreeing they need more money. But cumulatively, over the course of 10 years, this is creating a problem. And the suggestion I've had the last 2 years, and it wasn't my original idea, I got it from Wynn and Brandon, was we have to at some point make a hard decision to give a different COLA level for elected officials than for everybody else. That's the only way that I can see mechanically, functionally, for the deputies to be able to catch up relative to their peers in the sheriff's office. So, do you guys want to comment on that?
Do I want to? No, I don't. Daryl and I had a conversation about this, and this is one of the things that as elected, we're starting to see people that are outside that are appointed positions within the county that are starting to make more, quite substantially more than elected officials do. And that's becoming a really hard sell when you ask people, I'm gonna ask you, and I've said this a million times, I'm gonna ask you to come, I want you to give up your personal life, I want you to give your family time, I want you to work days, nights, weekends, holidays, everything else, I want to take you away from your family and everything else, and I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna pay you a whopping $20.40 an hour. Even exactly what he's saying is that when we talk about recruitment and retention, I can't recruit and I can't retain, and we all know that right now I'm one dispatch away from closing the dispatch center down. If another one walks out the door, we have to shut it down. And so when we talk about recruitment and retention, I have to be able to give a dog a bone once in a while, but it goes with the deputies as well. And when we start talking about trying to find qualified people to come and work here, when Gallatin County, and I hate using Gallatin, Lewis, and Clark, but they're my two biggest nemesis, because the fact is one starting out at 26 something an hour, the other one starting out at 28 an hour, and I'm starting out at 20.40 an hour. And who the hell wants to come here, work by yourself, weekends, nights, holidays, and everything else, and make, starting out $6 less an hour, and then you got very minimal amount of room because of statute, because they keep changing the population threshold. They start out 85% of what I make. After their year of probation, they go to 86. And then after that, once they don't have another increase until the 5-year deputy, they go to 87%. The detective's 85.5, the sergeant's 88, and then the captain's 90. And that's it. And that's the growth. You can spend your entire career at a senior deputy level, which is all $21 an hour. And that's without the cost of living. And then when you do get a cost of living, everybody else gets, the detention's getting a 3.9, and these guys are getting 87% or 86% of what I make. So whatever 87% of 80 or 3.9%, that's what the deputies get. So now we're starting to see where our detention, we're gonna have some detention officers who have been with us for a long time, they're gonna be making more as a detention officer than as a sworn officer on the street. And so that's, when we start, I'm just a small part of them. I'm 30 people of a population of 65 county employees. But, like I told Commissioner Folkford, is that if I can't figure out how to start retaining some of these folks, and they keep walking away and I have to start shutting stuff down. One thing that no one's talked about is this illustrious medical insurance that we all have. That will go away. The 3 road guys are not gonna be able to sustain enough Teamster money and interest to coagulate the other 65 in the county. So there's a huge ripple effect in what we're doing, and at some point, as Corey says, we need to have a conversation about changing the way we do business. Because the fact is that the sheriff's office is becoming a very low-paid, highly dangerous, low-paid position within the county. And I'm gonna work my stuff regardless, but if you want people on the streets, I guess we're gonna have to have a hard conversation and make some changes in some fashion. And I appreciate Corey bringing this up, I guess, but that's just where we're at. And this year we are where we are, but I think we might have a plan, depends on how things go, to kind of rectify some of the dispatch issues so we don't have to close that down. But, anybody got any questions or concerns or gripes or anything or something?
So I have a comment.
You bet.
We're kind of held hostage a little bit by the statute.
Mhm.
And so, I'm gonna ask you guys, just the public perception, county officials give themselves a 5% increase. Our employees get 3.9%. How does that play out?
Good question.
Yeah,
I'd like the answer.
I have a pretty good idea how that's gonna play out.
It's a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Corey,
So what
for
do we do?
bringing that up. Some of you know, some of you don't. I was in the reserve program and we started at Thompson with sheriff, and so I've been in law enforcement. I support law enforcement 100%. And I understand about statutes, but I also understand county commissioners, and I think Corey is doing an excellent job. And I believe you guys in a way can fix this problem and cure it, but when these officers put their life on a line, we lost Jason Moore, this is terrible. They're supporting our families, our kids, our babies, our grandparents, our people that has passed. They should be getting way more than any county employee. Please try and do something. This is Broadwater County. We could set the precedence for the United States of America. We are different. We are kind-hearted, honest people. And for the county employees to wear more than a female or a male that's wearing a gun that'll walk in front of us if somebody's going to kill us, for God's sakes, try and do something. Change the way it is. The sheriff, way back when I was involved, and way before, clear back, I know Norman Bruce's, Mike would probably know, grandfather was a sheriff. Clear back then. I mean, there was a sheriff and a city law enforcement. There wasn't any. But look at what they're going through now with the drugs and the killings, and you don't know who's going to walk around and kill people. This has changed. We have to change this. Please, as commissioners, work with your county attorney, work with your sheriff, do something to get them paid so that the sheriff is not, he can't compete with Gallatin County, Lewis and Clark. Nobody's going to come. They don't want to come here and work. And they're risking their life and getting up every morning for $20 here, even $26, $28. Come on. Put yourself in their position and go out to somebody that's holding somebody hostage in their house with an AR-15 or a handgun. And the sheriff's deputy walks in front of you, and he's the one that puts his life on line and takes care of our babies. Come on. Please, please, help us.
All right, so I got a question, just a good time to ask it. I don't wanna drop the bomb on everybody. So if our current tax base can't support it, I mean, we do what we can. Would the citizens of Broadwater County support a mill levy to help this sheriff's department make ends meet?
I would say the people that I know, the rural people, would be for that 110%. But they are against it 110%. What the county has done with hiring all of the employees, the road department, the different ones, I don't know the name of them all, and paying them and giving them all the wages, solid waste department, all the raises. They are so against all that. Take that money back. Put it in law enforcement. Law enforcement
Here's
should
my
have been in the
proposal,
front.
Bill, is what if it's a public safety mill levy that's specifically just for them?
I'm sure it would pass.
That's all where the money goes.
I'm sure it would pass. And make sure that that's the only place the money goes. But the public is still asking you to back up on the rest of these things that are going on that we're not getting serviced on. From the solid waste to all the other employees that the county has hired that the county does not need. The 3 county commissioners can make the decisions and run the road department. They can run the garbage department. They can do all of this. It can change. But yes, I am sure this county would support this law enforcement. As long as every penny went to them, wasn't used up in government like other things are.
Okay?
You gotta cut somewhere, and I agree with this. I agree with you, you gotta cut somewhere.
So if you pass this mill levy, it still doesn't do our deputies any good.
Yeah. So, that's the concern. So obviously, you're not gonna do that this year, I understand that. So maybe we're looking at this for next year, as far as this adjustment. And I'm not doing this because I want a raise, because I've turned down my raise every year I've been here. The issue is, that's the only way, if the other employees are here, that's the only way to bring the deputies up relative to them. And the other thing we've got is the Me Too clause, which is kind of is because of the union that the deputies did, and now it's potentially hurting them, I don't know. But, well, they're not in the union, I'm just looking at them just because they're.
So the Me Too clause isn't quite in effect, so, you know, that's the thing that, and I did talk to the union about it, is a market wage adjustment, that was one of the things that we clarified in two contracts ago, I think, was that because of the fact is no one was getting market wage adjustments, so everybody kind of, once we got that solidified to where market wage adjustments were okay, it didn't fall necessarily in the Me Too clause, that's where those changed. And I think that's where a lot of this comes in, but the commission's never been against market wage adjustment. The problem is there's no funding for it. And so every time we talk about a market wage adjustment to get anybody up to where it was, the next question was, where are you gonna get the revenue? And which takes me back where I don't wanna go, so I'm not gonna go there, in regards to funding. But we do have to do something, and I agree with what Bill's saying, that that's when we started having a conversation about a public safety mill levy, every one of them came down to is that we want to ensure that the money went there, and we can't ensure that. And so no one was comfortable with the fact of going down that path, because there was nothing in stone or written in stone or on the 10 Commandments that said that this money will go to law enforcement only, and what we had at the current time in regards to funding and state entitlement and everything else was not gonna change. So without some guarantees in life, no one was gonna jump on board with that. That's why I couldn't find anybody who was willing to step up to the plate. And so it kind of goes back to what Bill was saying. I think the support is there and people can appreciate it, and I think that in the grand scheme of things, it wouldn't be bad. The only other caveat to that though would have to be, you're gonna, in order to adequately pay law enforcement, public safety, dispatch control, detention, whatever, there's gonna have to be an agreement within the confines of the Board of Commissioners, I would think, that says that we're gonna have to change the matrix of what electeds look like. You know, right now, every elected official is at the same amount of pay. And I'm not sure, I haven't necessarily found that. I know the treasurer and the sheriff are supposed to be the same pay, but outside of that, I don't know if all the other ones are in statute. They are in statute? So you're gonna have to look at that big grand scheme of things to change that, because even if we did a public safety mill levy to increase the wages of the sheriff's deputies, to get them up to a standard we're gonna retain and recruit, and even our detention and our dispatch, the fact of the matter is you're gonna still have to change all the elected officials all the way down the pipe. And then that goes with their deputies as well. So it's not necessarily just a public safety component issue, it's all the way around. So, which complements and makes it a messier mess anyways, unless there's something I don't know about in the loophole to get around it. But as far as I know is that electeds, we'd all be doing the same thing. So, unless I'm wrong, Cory, I'm not an attorney,
Well, I'm
just a dumb cop.
so I think if you get a big amount of revenue, it gives you the ability to do some things. There's a couple things. One is the coroner qualification and stipend. That may be a place where maybe Wynn says every deputy's gonna be a deputy coroner, and then that stipend is more. I don't know if that's an option. That's probably not an option, because some people can't get through the course, right?
Well,
It's a tough course.
Well, it's not a tough course, I teach it. If I can teach it, you can pass it. I can teach a monkey how to write.
Thanks.
But the fact of the problem is that then you have a continuing education requirement, and that's why I don't do it. Is that for every year, I would lose half my patrol division to go to advanced corps. And so that doesn't work.
Okay. So what about the option of more deputies on the road? So you always have 2 on the road, right? I think they made the sacrifice of filling a deputy position down south and not filling the detective position. Well, that's killing me, I'll tell you. It's killing me a lot. So, Nick's doing double duty right now. The other one is, we've got to go on offense on the types of investigations we need for the drug dealing around here. That's a lot of time, a lot of work, a lot of patience. That's really probably a dedicated person. And then I don't know if that would help you do a market wage adjustment on dispatch if you had the revenue to do it. So those are the kinds of things that would help them.
Market wage adjustment right now on dispatch would be huge, and that's what we're kind of looking at. Right. I mean, right now, I think Gallup plan is just under $19 an hour start out for dispatch, and Lewis and Clark's 19 something and change in dispatch, and we're at 1403. And that's, for $5 more an hour, I think I'll drive 20 miles to go to work. Just my opinion, but that's a chunk of change throughout the year. So that's just some of our dilemmas. So, but as long as we kind of got way off in the weeds on that. Thank you, Cory. But I think if we're going to set the mills and come back to this budget back around, if our budget is set, the preliminary budget that Under Sheriff Harris submitted with the mills and everything else, we might be able to, with the increase into what the mill values were, I think we could actually sustain an increase the dispatch, and we talked about doing it over the course of over the year, so it wasn't a gouge out at the same time. But like I said, if we don't do something, I'm gonna be we're all gonna be we're all gonna have a bad day. That's just, let me be honest, it's not just me, it's everybody in this room's gonna have a bad day. So, I can't keep the ones I got, and I hate to say that our world revolves around 4 dispatchers sitting in a center of a jail, but, we kinda hold on the cards right now, so.
One of the things that we did that nobody's mentioned, and I think it's significant, it answers a lot of the comments from the public. And we worked a lot with Brandon on this, had a very long meeting to get to this point. But for the first time, this commission, working with Brandon, got shift differential for our sworn deputies. That's huge. I don't remember what the total cost was that will go into deputies' pockets, but it is significant. That needs to be part of this discussion. We've never had shift differential for sworn deputies, and we do now, starting July 1. So, we have made strides. We can't bypass the law. We can't. And that's what sets deputies, but I think we should absolutely be remembering those shift differentials we got this year, because it is a big deal. And not only for this conversation, but for those deputies as well.
Mr. Chairman, can you explain that? What you're talking about, the shift difference?
For anyone in the union, for the sheriff's shop, if you work weekends, nights, there's a power shift. I don't know if that's what's sworn. But so the shifts that are not what everybody wants, essentially, they are getting 45 cents an hour for one and 30 or 35 for the other.
40 cents and 10 cents for weekends.
40 cents and
For nights. And 10 cents for weekends.
Okay,
So we're talking
so,
about 40 cents more per hour or 10 cents.
Yeah.
right,
That doesn't seem to be huge to me.
it is huge when you look at the overall budget. And when we're strapped by law, it is something we can do. We can't go any higher because we have to make sure that nobody gets to above that percentage set in law. So we went to the ceiling on that, and it is a big deal.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I guess what I don't understand is these percentages, that's Montana law, Broadwater County statute?
Montana law,
Oh, goody.
yes, correct.
Is there, maybe Corey could answer it, or commissioners, is there a way to give additional incentives to law enforcement officers that could get us around that law, so that they, whether you paid a car payment, paid a house payment, is there ways around this to work with law enforcement and help them? There must be something, if it's a Montana statute and it needs to go through the legislature, that the county commissioners of all the counties could support that maybe in the future, but is there a way to give them, whether you give them a credit at the grocery store for $100 a month? Is there something that can be done now, instead of letting this go? Is there something that could be addressed? Please, let's think about it. Corey, can that be a possibility?
Well, there's a couple of thoughts. One is, there is, and I'm gonna show you the exact statute here in a second, but there are a couple of things that deputies do get. They do get a longevity pay for the number of years that they're in law enforcement.
Yeah, yes.
And other employees don't get that. If you're a deputy coroner, or an assistant coroner, maybe they're called, there's deputy coroner, there's a stipend for that.
Okay.
And basically you're on call, however they rotate the schedule.
Right.
You could get called out you could get called out Christmas morning, opening presents with your kids to go to a coroner call.
Correct.
I'm sure it's happened. There's obviously the shift differential. Are there other things out there that I'm not thinking of?
Yeah, all stipends, I mean, there's you know, you mentioned the housing thing, I think that'd be kind of a tough sell for here because counties use it for, Big Sky, for instance, in Gallatin County, roughly $1,000 a month, the Big Sky deputies get for a living stipend, because you cannot afford to live up there.
Yeah, right.
But for Broadwater, you know, everything's pretty roughly the same, that'd be, I think, a tough sell.
They only get, the deputies only get that. The deputy only gets, he gets holiday pay. You know, if they work a holiday, that's part of the agreement, if they work a holiday, they get double time and a half. If it's their day off and it's a holiday, they just get a standard 10 hours. This year they have a shift differential. Outside of that, deputies don't get anything else as a deputy other than whatever, you know, whether they're a sergeant or a detective or a captain or whatever. And they just get that percentage that we have broke down in the 4% that we get to play with. Detention and dispatch control, they've had shift differential, so if they work what we call the power shift 2 to midnight, or, well, that's when they were working 10s, now they're working 12s to keep everything going. So if they work the nights, they get so much, if they work the afternoons, they get so much, and then if they work weekends, they get so much more just for working weekends. They all get holiday pay, they all get the on-duty holiday pay and the off-duty holiday pay. But deputy coroners are assigned by me, and then they get their $142.58 as a stipend for that, which is on some of our calls. You want to give it back? I didn't want to see that, but that's there. And I think that's about it, isn't that, Brandon? FTO pay, if there's a trainer, they just got an increase in their FTO pay. A lot of liability with field training, so the trainer gets, while they're training a new deputy or detention officer or dispatcher, they get a certain amount of money per hour for that. And then once they're done training, they don't get it anymore. So it's only during the training time, so. Harris. That's it? Okay.
Is there any way you can increase that 45 cents and 10 cents?
Well, we just increased them.
You can't increase that because you can't, for statute, you can't go over the percentage. Deputies have everywhere from 85 to 95%. You can't go over, I think it was 95 if we read the law right.
I'm sure it's at 95, you can't make more than that.
Yeah, no, that's what you
And how
go
often-
over with the stipend though.
How often
Or
can you
the-
do that?
The shift
Every year,
differential.
or every contract, or every 5 years?
Well, if the pay doesn't change, like last year, then we can't do anything. So, the only way there's some movement is if there's a movement on elected officials.
So there's two statutes that we're kind of in between here. One is 7-4-2503, and that lays out the base requirement for the elected officials to have the same base pay, and then the sheriff gets a bonus, and there's some other bonuses involved depending on, like Doug Ellis is doing like 4 different jobs, so he gets a bonus because he has several offices that are consolidated under him. Then 7-4-2508 is the compensation schedule for the under sheriff and the deputy sheriff. And because we're a county of under 15,000 people, then that limits that range of deputies between 85% and 90% of the sheriff's compensation. The under sheriff is at 95%, and it says, for purposes of this section, compensation means the base rate of pay. It does not mean longevity payments or payments for hours worked overtime. So, because each officer has a longevity payments that's specific to their career and their own service.
So their overtime rate could be lots higher?
No, I mean, the overtime rate's gonna be established by, like, for these guys, by the union agreement and by the county policy. But if someone's working overtime, that doesn't make them later have to, next month they get a cut because they're over for the year. That overtime is not considered, it's still hours worked beyond their shift, which we have to do because of the labor law anyway, they're over the 40 hours.
I'm still flabbergasted y'all think that you deserve a 4% raise.
Anyway, sorry to take us way off track. I just wanted to interject this more for food for thought for coming years. I think it might make sense for us to sit down and do a more creative brainstorming thing prior to next March when we're gearing up for another budget battle.
Yeah, sure.
Back a few months ago when the county was beginning to talk about the budget, and it was in the newspaper, a lot of people told me, sure, a special mill levy for the sheriff's department, if only the actual budget of the regularly scheduled budget that the sheriff's department gets doesn't get cut if the mill levy gets approved. That the mill levy should be in addition to their regular budget in the county's budget system.
And that's always been my idea. We're not gonna cut their budget just because they get 10, if they go out for 15 mills and they get 15 mills, they still get the mills that we're giving them right now. The only way that would get cut was if the state, like they did this year, they cut a certain percentage of our mills down because the value went up. So that percentage would still get applied, but their base fund would still stay the same. And the other part of that too is if you pass that mill levy for public safety, and that's what it's passed for, that's the only place that money can go is to public safety.
We have examples of this to show that this is how it's done. However, or wherever that rumor came from that we would do what you're describing, it's absolutely 100% false. We have examples to show where if you get a voted mill levy, it's on top of what you're already getting. We don't take the mills away. Also with that, and part of that previous discussion is, if there's a mill levy vote for public safety, this commission could not use it to increase the salaries of elected officials. Could not. It's only for public safety.
In public safety, that's a broad brush, you know, anywhere from painting fire hydrants so that you can see them to curbs or whatever. Would this go straight to the sheriff department?
Public safety is the sheriff's department.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that rumor's done irreparable harm to our county. So I'm glad you gave us the chance to dispel it again in a public meeting.
Well, then the public just didn't have enough information from you guys in the first place.
Mike, can we have a vote still on the table for the 3.9%?
Yeah, we still have.
Can I ask for the question?
Yeah.
Okay, I asked for the question, or call for the question.
So we'll have a vote. Is there any further discussion on the COLA? So we'll have a vote. All in favor of the 3.9% COLA? Vote. Aye. Opposed? Aye.
Aye.
Same. Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
Tim Riedel, News. Just a quick question. How does the 3.9 compare to this next fiscal year's increase in COLA at the national level? Anybody know?
I haven't seen the numbers on that yet, no.
No, I haven't seen any numbers on it.
And every county has done something different with the COLA.
So, Debbie, with the departmental budgets, could you share your thoughts on planning and where we're at? I'm looking at the tax levy requirements report.
So you're talking about the planning department specific?
Yeah, just the fund 2260, 2250. We have a deficit of just $352 with all the work that you've done. What you had suggested is that could be realized in just one, $350 cut expenses. or two, we can reevaluate some of the planning fees. They haven't been reevaluated in a good 10+ years. With departments that are funded this way, it's my personal opinion that if you're getting a special service from the county that is above and beyond what is kind of our baseline services, then you should pay for that. It shouldn't be the taxpayers paying for your extra services. So planning fees may have to be reevaluated just like we did sanitation fees last year. But for balancing their budget for the time being, we could just require that money cut in expenses, $352, is that what it is?
Pardon?
$352?
$340.28.
Thank you, so not
Make
quite
it zero.
350. All right. What do you guys think?
You just pull that out of a pill then?
Nope, I would suggest either a slight increase to the revenue report or a slight decrease to the expenses, and balance it that way.
And I could work with Nicole, and she could tell me what areas she can
Yeah,
cut.
I'm sure there's probably someplace in that. We can
We need to do
make that
from
adjustment.
postage to office supplies to.
Sure.
Unless signed for an order or something.
Okay.
I don't know how else goes with her.
Is that the only negative, Debbie? I know you have a plan for WIC and bioterrorism. Is there anything else?
Nope, I got last minute numbers on the victim witness, and that'll take care of that shortage.
Junk vehicle, you've got a plan to pull from the CIP?
We've got, stuff from the state, the budget's worked out, and she's already submitted that to the state with the leftovers, so that one's all squared away and balanced. We got numbers from them earlier this year than we have in the past, so that made it easier to finish ahead of time.
So if I don't see any more negatives, I'm not missing something, is what you're saying?
Nope.
Okay. Unless you guys see any that we're missing, I would move to adopt the departmental budgets as worked out by Debbie.
Is solid waste, are we
For sure.
pulling on a pilt and trying to get another loan to take that back to Pilt, or how are we gonna?
Right, what has to happen at the end of every year, any fund that's in a negative, whether it's they've overspent, lack of revenue received because of the cross in fiscal years between us and the state or federal, Pilt does a short-term loan effective in June. Then those departments repay it effective in July. So it becomes a wash, but it's kind of a housekeeping issue, we can't have a negative, because then that would put us in findings and issues with the auditors. So it's a general fund or Pilt are the only two that can do it, because they don't have restrictions. Pilt does it, they have the largest, sometimes general fund does, and then it goes right back. And then during the course of the year, depending on the department, the revenue will come in, take care of the negatives, like solid waste is working on possible loans, generating extra revenue, cutting their expenses to cover that, to make up for those deficits. And then hopefully that doesn't happen again at the next fiscal year, but if it does, then the process repeats.
And then the other one was we were talking about taking 19,000 out of Mason Moore and putting it into the county attorney budget. So
That
we're
was one of the last little housekeeping.
we're gonna leave that 19,000 in the Mason Moore account, take the 19 out of Pilt and transfer that over, right?
Right, to the
county
litigation.
attorney, does that go into Bar's litigation, is that
Yes.
where that's going?
Yes, and then it stays there.
Okay, so we won't have to worry about that, switching that money back and forth, okay.
We haven't voted on that. I would support that, but I would save so next year it goes to 80 instead of 100, or 81, to compensate for that 19. You guys good with that?
Yeah. Yes.
So I would move to, oh, we haven't voted on departmentals. Sorry. Oh, okay.
I have a question on departmental budgets. Are these the budgets that we submitted, our preliminary that we're voting on then, or? So the exact budget that we submitted is what's being voted on here?
Correct.
Okay, so no changes?
Nope. You submitted is what it is.
All right.
And then any extra revenues that the increased values get go right into your fund.
So we're having is there a second on the approval of the departmental budgets?
I will second the motion.
Motion's been made and second to approve the departmental budgets as presented. Any further discussion? Cory?
So, two questions. Let's start first on the victim advocate grant. As you're aware, there was an email exchange last week, and it's not clear to me on what the solution is there. So, we received notice, I think just last Wednesday or Thursday, of the final grant award for victim advocate.
Yeah.
And it's 2 years, it's 48,000 each year, which is slightly under the amount that's needed. And I got an email from Debbie suggesting a couple of changes to the budget, either that it would come out of the county attorney budget, or that we would do an interlocal agreement with Marr County, which is not, number one, we can't do that. We can't do either option. I can explain why if you want. But my meetings with the commission, we've had 2 meetings on it. The last meeting, when we believed that the amount was going to be the 96,000, which it ultimately turned out to be, I thought at that meeting that the commission said, we'll cover the remaining $4,000. So I just want to give you a brief history on this. Is the grant that we've had, that folks had all the way back from 2011.
Actually, it'd be like 98 when it started. These are just the numbers from the
Okay,
last 10 years.
okay, so it started in 98, but the last, what would be the last 10 years through this 2-year grant that she just got, that there's never been, up until this last 2-year cycle, there's never been a period when the county didn't pay the remainder of that, of her salary and operations. So, for example, the 2016-2017 2-year grant was $20,800 for each year. And then 2018-2019, it was $50,390, so $50,400 per year. That was the first time ever that 100% of victim advocate work was covered by a grant, and the county realized that savings. And we used some of that for other things, but a lot of that, most of that actually didn't come back to the county attorney's office or the county victim advocate, it went back to the general fund. So this cycle, it's a $2,000 reduction from that, essentially $2,400. And with the COLA and other things, there's a shortfall of about $4,000. So I guess I just want to make it clear that we don't want to be in a position where we're punished for getting a grant. In other words, great news, got a grant that was 100% last 2-year cycle. This one, it's at over 95%, probably 95% actually of value. Huge savings over years prior to that. And then if there's a shortfall because the grant amount was reduced, and we're being told, well, take that out of Hyde, that seems counterproductive for anyone who's thinking, well, I can get a grant in the future that will save money for the county, and then if that grant is reduced somehow, I'm punished for it by that money having to come out of Hyde, where we've already been reduced to the point where there's no room there. So I guess I wanted to, and why don't you hand a couple of these to the commissioners? And then Brooke, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think that that's pretty much it. I guess that's the thing is that until 2000, what was it, 17 or 18, I was based on the 2/5 time, and if anybody else would like one, 2/5 time for the county attorney and 3/5 time as the victim witness advocate. And so then when I got this full grant, it did help, pay for me entirely. However, then I never really got clarification of where the other money went that was being paid. So I've been here since 2001. There was always 2/5 time of a budget that when I got this full grant that went away, and I still don't know where that went. So it seems to me that if I didn't get it fully, there should have been monies in the past that were available that aren't now. And as you can see, over the last 10 years alone, I've brought in $331,587 into the county. And it's a lot of work. I mean, I have to like take away from direct services from the people of this county and community to put a lot of time into these grants. So I'm hoping that, like Corey said, we don't get punished for this, because otherwise what would be the point of getting a grant?
So I guess I'm needing some education.
Yeah.
So do you go to Mark County and do some work for them over there?
Sometimes, a lot of times, the Attorney General's office is also involved as well. They have no services up there, and they have some substantial crimes. Right now, I have 2 cases that I'm just assisting. A lot of it is telephone calls, emails, stuff like that, but helping them with, get involved with if there is services available, how we can get them into services, crime victims compensation, things like that, trying to plug them into systems more than anything. So it's not, it could be, I could say that there'd probably be months and months where I wouldn't assist a person up there. But some of these cases go for quite a long time that I might have to have some contact with people. And I do that as much for, these people need help. It's really that simple.
So is the idea of this grant for you to help those folks? Is that the purpose of this?
No, this
It was,
grant is
well, but it
for-
was part of our,
Yeah.
part of our narrative and justification is that she does provide,
Okay.
as needed support from our county, so.
And the south end of the county for that matter. I mean, we have in the north end.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm asking. Okay, and then who covers your travel costs?
I have that within my grant.
Okay.
It's my grant.
The concern I have about if we do it in a local agreement with Mar County, number one, that is part of our justification for the increased grant award, so we might be double doing it. But secondly, for it to make sense for them, they're gonna say, okay, we want her here 1 day every week, and that's just not workable. I mean, it's not in any way something that I would agree to.
So it's just on as needed right now, right? As needed basis?
Yeah, and I believe during the one trial we had up there, they did submit travel to them, and they did reimburse that.
But that was also a unique thing in that it was that was a Broadwater Mar County case. I mean, it was.
And the victims lived here in Broadwater County, so my duty is to those victims.
I don't think an interlocal has to be like the ones we have with the city, for example. An interlocal could be if you do go over to provide services because they don't have any, there's a daily charge, not per phone call or email, but if you spend the day over there, should Broadwater County be paying that? And when you did testify that you are a regional victim witness advocate office, well, now there is some obligation that at least be addressed. So an interlocal could be very loose, still on paper so that everybody has a common understanding, but it could be that Mar County will pay you for half a day or a full day that you actually spend helping them with their cases. So it doesn't have to be something where they guarantee $10,000 a month to your budget. I don't think that was ever intended by anybody,
Okay,
certainly
and
not
I will
by
say, I don't
Debbie in her email.
think I ever identified as a regional victim, I've assisted. My title is Broadwater County Victim Witness Advocate.
The testimony at Board of Crime Control was a regional, because that was one of the abilities to go for not an amendment. So when you didn't get the money you wanted, you guys came to testify in early June.
Right.
Your testimony was with the criteria that you can be reevaluated. One of those is that you're a regional
Right.
facility, and that was the testimony.
So I think it was, yeah.
That's
I understand
federal
what you're
dollars
saying.
we're talking about, we gotta stick with what it is that we want.
Right. Yeah, and I think actually what it says is that if wherever you're from, if these services are in place, and if the amount of money that you're getting, and that was on the federal level, and we all know that, that the reason that the money wasn't there, it was every single agency in the state of Montana that wasn't funded. What actually, I think says, is that your agency, and our agencies can be anything, it could be the Y, it could be, shelters, anything, they get these grants. If those services would go away if you weren't there, then you have the right to appeal it. So that was.
Regional is in that,
Okay,
in that sentence.
Okay.
We just redid them.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
so again, it doesn't have to be, you know, we want you to pay us $10,000 and you're gonna guarantee 3 days a week over in Mark County. I don't think that's what anybody has ever intended in any of the conversations, but it is something to look at,
Okay.
is how do we just make sure that Broadwater County is not picking up the tab,
Right.
and that you do stay true to that testimony.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other question I have is, Debbie, has there been a penalty for getting this grant?
No. Never.
Even with the increase?
Correct.
Okay,
Historically, county attorney is in the general fund, so it's not picking on or penalizing that budget. A budget works in the general fund, you request what you need to maintain your operations. If you're cutting, it was because we were back 2 or 3 years ago when they're trying to get everybody to cut their budget. It's never been said you're not gonna have it. So if you say I'm gonna spend $2,000 this year on postage, but you only spend $500, but next year I'm gonna need 2,000, you budget your 2,000. It's not taking it away, you still get the 2,000, you spent what you needed, it stays in there. You don't say, well, I didn't spend 1,500 and add another 2,000. That's not how the budget in the general fund works. The revenue belongs to everybody in the general fund. Taxes, fees for services, all contribute to everybody in the general fund. So there's never been a penalty. In the past, yes, it was county attorney's budget in the general fund that supplemented the crime victim witnesses services. There's never been a penalty.
I don't think I was the one being penalized, I think the county attorney's office would be penalized because the money would have to come back out of his budget.
But it's still coming out of the general fund.
Okay,
So if he needs that to cover your services or any of his services in his budget, and he's not being extravagant saying I need $1 million because I want it, he's gonna get everything he needs to cover all the services that's under the general fund jurisdiction. It's no different than my budget. If I say I need this much to do it, it's coming out of the general fund. I'm not being penalized. Even
So,
more than anybody else.
I don't have a problem with that, so long as that additional, it's almost 5,000 a year, 4,500 of revenue comes into my budget to cover that. That's what I said in my email. I don't have a problem with that so long as I get the additional revenue to do it. Because my current budget, the revenue has been chopped. I'm at the margin. That's all there is to it. And so if there's another 4,500 a year that needs to cover for her time, then fine. But I'm gonna need the 4,500 from the general fund to cover that. That's what my point has been.
and I think another piece of clarification is, you said your revenue has been chopped. I think a piece that we need to remember is you chopped it. When you canceled your interlocal with the city and lost $18,000, we took $18,000 from the general fund and gave that to you anyway, for your office. You were not penalized, you did not lose it, you did not realize an $18,000 hole. So we haven't chopped your budget, we have made you whole each year, just like Debbie described.
Okay, well, we can have a very long conversation about this if you want to, but if you go back from day one when I walked in here to today, it has been a consistent, continual, year by year reduction in my revenue and punishments for any savings rather than me keeping them for major litigation. But I know we disagree on this, Commissioner, so that's fine. But I'm telling you that this has not been us walking around handing out $100 bills, and what we have seen, in my view, is a reduction in my budget in places where I need it, or views that have been unsympathetic towards the needs that we have. We've scraped together funds here and there. So The same thing would go for this interlocal issue last year, is you see, if you look at that budget amount from 2017 to 2018 is much more than the $18,000 in lost revenue from the city. It's over $30,000. And we also found other revenues last year to offset that. And we can go back and replow that ground if we need to. What I'm getting at is today, two things. Number one, Debbie just represented to the commission that this was fixed. Well, I don't know what the fix is, so I'd like to know what that is. Number two, we are not doing an interlocal agreement with Morrow County. We're not doing what you just suggested. That's not gonna happen. I absolutely will not agree to that. And that justification we had as far as Brooke providing regional services as needed, that was justification for the grant amount. We're not gonna now reuse that for county money. And we're only talking $4,500 a year. It's not like Morrow County is out there gouging us to the rate of $4,500 a year. That's not what's happening. So what we've made it very clear from the beginning is we were concerned this grant would have a shortfall. At the testimony in June, when we found out there was much more money available, and we talked about the fact that the region would suffer, and the region would suffer if Brooke were suddenly not there, guess what? We got an increased grant award from the Board of Crime Control. I consider that at least partially responsive to the fact that she does have a regional presence here. So it doesn't make sense to now go back and do an additional charge for Morrow County, or a charge for Morrow County for that remaining $4,500. I'm not gonna agree to an interlocal agreement with Morrow County, because I know what will happen. There will be mission creep, and she'll be over there all the time. And that's just not gonna work for us.
And secondly, it's not unlike, and just say in the sheriff's office, we do agency assist. You help people in other counties. They don't have to have interlocal agreements with, say, somebody from Gallatin County, or if Gallatin County comes and helps us, we don't charge them, and they don't charge us, they just did. That's part of the line of work that we're in, unfortunately.
So is that grant given to you as to cover Broadwater County?
Yes.
So at what point, when White Sulphur has all these needs for services, are we gonna start charging Morrow County for our services?
It's
Because
not this
our
huge amount.
taxpayers are paying for her to go to Morrow County. Why isn't Morrow County simply reimbursing us for we send them a bill, if she spends 4 hours, we send them a bill for 4 hours, they pay us back. Otherwise, when they explode and get a mine and they got 20 times more cases, all of a sudden she's over there all the time.
No, the problem is if we do an interlocal agreement, that's what will happen.
Well, what I'm saying is, without this interlocal agreement right now, it's already happened.
No,
it
I
hasn't.
use my discretion.
These two cases are, one of them is because it was a Townsend connection, I took over the case. Marvin Reddick and I took the case over, we had to get it done. That was, and so in the process, we basically lived with these folks for a year and a half. This other case is absolutely, I mean, it's worse than any case I've had in this arena, it's a bad one. And the Attorney General's office is heavily invested, and so we agreed to help them out because it's seriously a human cost is significant if someone doesn't help them out. But, I mean, it's not like we're out there, you know, every month fielding calls from Morrow County. But she does provide a service in acute crisis moments for them, which is part of what we explained in the grant narrative. This is not gonna be a runaway train, but if we do an interlocal agreement, that is my concern. The camel's nose is gonna be under the tent, next thing you know, the whole camel's gonna be inside the tent. And I don't want that to happen. Morrow County is fully aware of the growth issues that they have. They've just moved their county attorney to 3/4 time, he was half-time, and they are doing a cost estimate where the mining company is paying for them to at least one or maybe two more officers as an impact fee to come on. And they're fully aware of the fact that if there's a victim advocate that's needed, that they realize they're gonna have to end up doing probably half-time, certainly wouldn't be full-time, but they're gonna have to do probably a half-time person over there. I've had these conversations with the county attorney, but I'm not gonna invite them to ride her like a rented mule, and that's what'll happen.
So if this is assisting the Attorney General, why are we billing the Attorney General?
We don't bill the Attorney General, they don't bill us. That's not how it works.
Like,
We're talking $4,500 a year.
I don't have an issue with the $4,500
It's not
a year.
that much.
What I have an issue with is that this thing's gonna grow, and then we're gonna end up And then it's gonna be a year later before well, you know what, we need an interlocal, or we need to say no.
The way that it's gonna grow, I will say this, the way it's gonna grow is by doing exactly what you're proposing. The other thing I have a problem with is no one's had this conversation with me. Commissioner Over just referred to a bunch of conversations. I don't know who those were with. We found out about it when we got an email from Debbie last week. So if you're considering an idea of an interlocal agreement, the two people that should be in on that conversation are sitting right here. We never heard boo about it. So
Yes,
I have
we
a
did.
problem with that.
Brooke and I had a conversation in the hallway a couple weeks ago, and I asked you about it, and you said, oh yeah, that's doable.
No, I think you suggested it, I think the only thing I would have said is we could talk about it. I don't think I would have said it was doable, because let me just say, I run my office, I've been in my office for 20 years. I use my discretion as to how often I go to Mark County, which is very few and far between. The one case was the victims came to me to report a horrible crime. So I had to assist these victims. They live in Broadwater County. The crime happened in Mark County. So my duty was to the victims. The other one is simply a phone call here and there. I'm assisting people right now throughout the state that were probably victims of crimes within our county. I don't charge that county for their resident. It makes no sense.
So last year she did a Lewis and Clark County case, okay? That was you remember, it was in the newspaper, someone was wrongfully convicted, two guys were wrongfully convicted of a murder from the 80s, okay? Everybody there had to be conflicted out because the current county attorney was on the defense team, and the victim advocates, it was a mess. Attorney General had to take it over. They didn't have a victim advocate who could assist the victims. They called and asked Brooke, and Brooke said, yes, I'm gonna help. She spent several days up in Lewis and Clark County, helping the Attorney General's office, helping the Attorney General's office didn't bill Lewis and Clark County for that work. That's their job. That's how they help each other out. We helped them out because, I mean, think about that. You got a family who 23 years later, a murder is overturned, a murder conviction is overturned. They were going through a major crisis. So that's what we do. We help each other out. And that's part of the regional service that she does. But this idea that we're gonna do this interlocal agreement for Marr County, number one, like I said, that's a conversation we should have rather than a random email literally right before you're gonna approve the budget. And secondly, I'm telling you, it's not a good idea.
Yeah.
And just to kind of add to the sharing of services, you know, we're getting hung up, but, you know, if you go back to May of 2017, you had a bunch of Lewis and Clark, Gallatin County, Bozeman PD, Highway Patrol, Lewis and Clark deputies, HPD, working your county streets. And none of them sent us a bill. And as sheriffs, that's what we do. As law enforcement, as county attorneys, we step in when there's a need, and we take things over. And I think even our citizens would appreciate the fact that when there's 2 or 3 deputies on every shift in their town, and there's abundance of them, I think everybody saw them, they're probably pretty thankful that the sheriffs of those jurisdictions didn't send us a bill for that. They probably very appreciated the fact that as we have the ability to step in and help people out in time of need, we do that. And I don't think if there's a citizen out there that would disagree with anybody helping another person out, that's one of our core factors of life and being a citizen of this country, is we help our neighbors. That's all that they're trying to do in this particular sense. It's not, and I wouldn't want to do it either. I don't want to engage in an interlocal agreement with Sheriff Gookin or Sheriff Dutton, even though they're both very good friends of mine. But I sure don't want to put something in paper that says that I have an obligation. And you know, where, you know, I get to use discretion of where I can jump in, where they jump in, and everything else. So that sharing of services has been happening for years and years and years, and it's going to continue to happen. It's no different than DCI coming down and investigating anything down here. They don't send me a bill for that. They come in, they take care of it, and they do whatever I need them to do, and then they go on their merry way. I think, you know, not to prolong this out any far, they just think that, let's not get down in the weeds too far where we're having conversations about putting things in writing, because, you know, that tends to go back into the statement I made last week about too much government and too many things where we don't need it. So, I'll just leave it at that unless somebody has a question for me.
One more thing too, I mean, we have victims that are passing through this county all the time, that live in other communities and other counties, that I plug them into their local victims advocate. So somebody's gotta give them services, and it's where it's convenient for that victim, truthfully. I use complete discretion on how much I help Mark County, and it is very occasional.
All right, so the question still is, where are we gonna come up with $4,500 for this account?
I would suggest we just leave it for now, monitor, if there's an issue, we can address it, but for right now, I suggest we just go ahead and keep the budget as is,
But what is the as-is? What is
what it
it?
is right now.
But I don't know what that is. I don't have a piece of paper. I don't know. Debbie says she's got a fix for that shortfall, but I don't know what it is. Does anyone?
The new fiscal year is getting her fourth quarter revenue. But it's this current year that we just finished, there's a $10,000 shortfall because the grant money did not come in by June. So it's all a matter of paperwork, how to take care of that. Which is what we've been discussing. What happens in June is a short term, it comes back out in July, everything's balanced, everything's good, and it comes out in the wash because of these fourth quarter things. I was just kind of pointing out, running numbers, did anybody remember this is a shortfall? It wasn't discussed. That's why I put that out there, because like everything else, these little things come up as I'm finalizing, values come. Every department has had some kind of email conversation from me about what are we gonna do about this happened, evaluations, this did this. All it is a matter of housekeeping paperwork, so that budget's balanced, accounting principles are followed, keeping us out of hot water with the state, the Department of Revenue, where we're not violating any of their things and getting funding withhold. If we don't do it right, grant money could get withheld because we aren't following said regulations that they're now setting forth and forcing on us.
But now you've got that final
But
payment.
once we
so that's
clarified, it changed the whole outlook of that,
Because that's always a reimbursement,
because
right?
it's always a
Okay,
reimbursement.
so fourth quarter last year is done, is good, correct?
She's told me when it's coming in, I just have to make notes, moving forward, that takes care of it.
So what's the plan for the current budget that these guys are about to adopt for that $4,500 shortfall?
Debbie, wasn't there a $10,000 shortfall and the the fourth quarter came in at 13,000, so there's 3,000.
Right, but the
Okay.
problem is it came in the new year.
Correct.
So in finalizing last year in this new year's budget, it doesn't show as revenue last year, so it shows her fund in a negative, as well as many other funds. It comes in the new year, but because it's when it's received, we have to count it as revenue in this year. So it's like there's a lag time. That's always a housekeeping issue, when there's those lags. She's not the only one, we've got other federal grants, the health clinic, that we have to do these little housekeeping things, but I have to know the amount to plug it in, and that was what I was waiting for on Brooke. And then this whole other thing came to light, and it's like, oh, here's another part, did we talk about this? Here's what I see as the options that have been out there and discussed with me,
So
what I need to do.
Okay, so the budget that you were talking about then was prior to that money coming in, and so that was the concern, okay.
So what is the budget we're gonna adopt?
We're not
for
adopting
this-
it yet, I'm trying to
Got
get
it.
the numbers so I can finish it, so we can have our hearing to adopt it, yes.
What is the proposed fix? What is the proposed source of revenue for the $4,500 for victim advocate per year that is not covered by her grant?
It goes year to year and zeroes out. There's not extra. My fix is, a lot of your surcharges, you have a restricted cash account that it's not going into.
Okay.
And I think that's where we're getting off,
Okay.
is it's going into your regular cash when Doug's office receipts it. So that's
Okay.
gonna be one of the things that stops, so it goes in there.
Okay.
I don't know how that will play out long term, but that's one of the things that needs to happen that wasn't being done.
Okay.
But you can't use those surcharges for your salary.
Yeah, you can. I can use it however I want to, it can go within it, it's been, so I don't quite understand how things get receipted in. Because, like, for instance, like, I know that they sent the money August 1st, but like we talked at the end of last week and you weren't seeing it. So, I think it's probably worth having a discussion between you and I and Doug about where all the funds are.
Because that's not the first time.
And surcharges are something that depends on how much crime happens in the county, so.
And that's something, you'll have to say, Doug, here's how I want it to go.
Right.
This is the account, I want my restricted cash or
Yeah.
down. Right now, they're putting it in regular cash, which is going in as part of your revenue to expend and use,
Right.
whether it's wages, operations,
Yeah.
anything.
But that's something that we don't know. We don't.
So
So
what
for
is the
that,
budget?
can we ask those guys to work on making sure the money receipted in goes to that cash account, not the general cash, and adopt the budget for the departmental
Yes.
funds at this point?
What are you adopting for? That's what I don't understand. What are you adopting?
Corey, you are hung up on $4,500. Debbie just gave us the solution.
No, that's not the
Brooke
solution.
and Doug are going to work to make sure that the,
But
Funds.
I'm concerned about that too, because that's something that's separate, that's supposed to be held over a year after year if I don't use it. And I'm concerned that if I don't spend it within that budget, then it gets sucked into the general fund, and that's not where it's supposed to go. It's supposed to be strictly for my
I
grant.
don't think that's
Or strictly
possible.
for my department.
It's
No,
not. There's no
no.
way for that to happen unless somebody is manually manipulating things. It's not getting sucked into, because your fund is yours alone. So unless somebody's misreceiving it into another account or another fund, it is in your fund.
Mr. Chairman, I'm really confused. The paperwork that Debbie's talking about, does Corey and Brooke, do you have a copy of that?
No, we don't. I have no idea what you're proposing right now. That's what I'm asking for clarification before you vote on.
didn't you turn in the budget?
Yeah,
That's what we're trying to adopt. or
you're
approve
not,
so
because
that-
there's a big difference in Brooke's
approve,
budget.
so if you would let me finish, approve so that Debbie can put together the final budget for adoption the 3rd of September.
Okay, so what it's gonna show is it's gonna show a negative of about $4,500 a year in the victim advocate budget. Is that what you're gonna adopt today?
No, Corey, I don't know where you're getting this. I think Debbie's explained it now a couple
No,
of times.
she
I
hasn't.
think the solution is for Debbie and Brooke and Doug to work together and figure out where the money needs to be receipted into. We had a deficit of 10, a surplus of, income of 13, so that leaves 30 right there. So work with these guys, and I think that everybody will be fine with what you come up with.
Okay, that's a future conversation. You're about to vote on something that has
Just setting
numbers.
departmental budgets, Corey.
Okay, what's this department budget gonna be set at? For the victim advocate specifically.
I'm gonna let Debbie answer that, but I think it's right on our tax levy requirements report. We provided copies for in past meetings. And mine is from August 15th, so I don't have an updated one with the 4th quarter that was missing, and that's why it was showing a negative.
Okay, so I'm wondering why, it's clearly there's a hole in this that you guys want to adopt. That's my concern, that's why I'm continuing to not adopt, to vote on.
I know, I don't know where that's coming from. Did I already make the motion? There's a motion on the floor, right?
The motion, you move to adopt the departmental budgets, which was seconded by Commissioner Fulford.
We didn't change any departmental budgets, correct, Debbie?
Correct.
I would call for the question.
No, I have more questions on a different subject.
The motion has been made and seconded to approve the departmental budget. Is that submitted? Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, I have further questions on a different subject, Mr. Chairman. So it was gonna be $19,000 from the Mason Memorial Fund. It was gonna go to the Barris Litigation Fund. And the suggestion I heard just a while ago was to use TILT money instead of that. Is that accurate?
Yeah, because the auditors didn't want us to do transfer from Mason Moore fund to yours and then from PILT back into Mason Moore, so we'll just eliminate the step of going through the Mason Moore and just take it out of PILT and put it into that fund from PILT versus taking it out of Mason Moore and leave that in the Mason Moore.
So the concern I have is, the rest of what I heard was reduce the PILT amount from 100,000 to 80,000 because of that,
81,000.
81,000.
But the 19 that you wanted originally was a supplement of the 100, right?
Right, so the outstanding bill I have is 125,000. So we just received, I don't know if we've received it, but it's been approved. Beaverhead County's gonna send us $5,000. So with the 19,000 from the Mason Moore fund, plus another 1,000 that's still in that litigation fund, that would take 20,000 off. With 100,000 from the bill, that would pay off that entirely this fall, which we need to do because this thing's been due since January, and we've been paying them in installments and kind of slow playing them and telling them the check's in the mail, it's coming, we're good for it. Well, the goal is to get that paid off, and that math that I just went through was our means to pay that off. There might be another 4,000 coming, hasn't come yet, reimbursement from the court administrators. The bottom line is if we use PILT as a substitute for the Mason Moore money, that's fine, but if then you reduce PILT by that corresponding amount, that still leaves us 19,000 short to pay that thing off. We need to pay it off this fall. So I've asked a couple times and I'm happy to talk to the auditor. I've not yet had like an actual explanation of why that money cannot be used for this fund, because when it was put in by the commission, it was put in that it can be used for any purpose deemed appropriate by the sheriff. And he had deemed this as an appropriate use for it.
This subject is off of departmental budgets. Can I ask that we have here any comment on departmental budgets and then move on to PILT?
Yeah, we can do that. So we have a vote on this departmental budget. Is there a vote? Is all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. So I think now we can go to the PILT. My idea is to stay with the 100 plus the 19.
Mine too.
Okay.
And I think that was gonna be my motion as well. My suggestion is that we just next year do 81 instead of 100, so it's in advance.
For next year, not this year, the next year.
Right,
Okay,
right, so it's essentially 119,000 for PILT this year.
this year.
Next year, 81.
Okay, so the concern I have is we've talked about the life of this case, and then we've gotta begin building up money for the next part that's gonna come, that's gonna be very expensive. So I'm gonna like to continue to explore this with the auditor on what exactly the problem is on the use of these funds, that their use was originally designated as very wide. So I'm gonna continue to explore that, I'll come back to you when I have either been satisfied that he's right or convinced him otherwise. Because I don't want that, my goal is to prevent a $19,000 reduction next year. Eventually, we're gonna have to have that money to win this case.
Would you like us to hold off on the vote till you talk to Bob?
No, because if you're talking about a reduction for next year, then that's fine. Gives me plenty of time to deal with that. You're talking about the 100,000 plus 19, and then next year, we're gonna use that money to balance it, for offset.
So the motion would be to advance the county attorney's office $19,000 from the expected PILT transfer of next fiscal year.
Yes.
And of course, that would correspond to 81,000 in use next year. I can put that in the form of a motion if I want.
Okay.
All right, I so move.
Is there a second?
No, second.
Motion been made and second to pull 19 from next year's, 19,000 from next year's budget. PILT to reduce that donation to the county attorney's office to 81,000. With advice from the auditors that Corey's going to do. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Yeah, actually, I'm sorry, we don't have PILT on our list of things we're doing, so, I am going to take back my motion, because it's not on the agenda. We'll have to deal with it next week or the week after.
We can just table it.
So where are we at now?
Mills, so we have our mills sheet. We were able to give extension of 0.5. They got 0.3 last year, 0.2 this year, to offset the losses that, that department has been experiencing. So that was the biggest change, so they did get the increase. I think, what did you do, Debbie, with planning, 0.32?
Correct.
Okay, and that was from the recertification, and then, what Debbie also did is she looked at senior meals. RMDC had requested, an increase, I think, 2.4%, and we were giving them substantially more than that, so she reduced the mills to realize it's still more than 2.4, but just slightly, and then, those were the mills she was able to give to extension and planning and such general fund.
Okay.
And they're still getting more than what they were requesting. So with that, I would move, unless there's questions, that we adopt the mills as presented in the determination of tax revenue, mill levy limitations, as presented by Debbie.
Second?
I have a question.
Yes.
Can I see the document so we can see if there's a reduction on our end, or is there a reduction? Or an increase, or if they're gonna stay the same? Because we had a letter out from the commission, you know, that we were going into this budget with the same exact mills we had the year previous, so I'm wondering if, did that stay the same?
There was a reduction of mills, so the motion last year was you would keep the same number of mills in the floating mills. So Debbie, can you explain what Department of Revenue did with the mills and what you did?
I know what they did, I just need to, can I see the document?
Yeah, where are we at? Because I'm assuming that the visualization of what we actually talked about is not what happened. So, and in the beginning of this budget cycle, we were told that we were getting 37.17 mils. That's what the budget was set at, that we proposed, that we submitted. So now it's down, I'm assuming it's probably down to 32 mils. Where's it down to?
Part of that was your SRS mills, which is based on a dollar value.
Okay.
It went down
Where
by
am I-
0.10. So what we had to do with all the budgets that get floating mills is that percent reduction applied across the board to everybody.
So what,
And
just
for
answer my question.
3.3%, so here's how it was
How many
achieved.
mills do I have?
You have 36.0,
Okay, so how are we ever gonna visualize anything? Our bill, just stop for a second, please. This is where I'm getting frustrated, is that we just had a discussion that took an hour about recruitment retention and a plan to try to adjust this, and you guys reduce the amount of mills because the money went up. This, every year I come down here, stop.
We didn't do it, Department of Revenue
You
did
know,
when
because
Department
you
of
coulda left it.
Revenue reduced the
You
number
coulda
of
left
mills.
Right. You could have left it exactly where our budget was set at last year's mills. It could have, and all we're doing is reducing it to the same amount of money that we ask for every year. That's what it comes down to. So I'm right here with hearing about everybody needs to take money and put it in CIPs. I can't get a CIP because I don't have any extra money, because every time I submit a budget, you reduce it to the same amount of money. So when you come in and you make a statement as whatever mills you get is what you got. So if you got 37.17, that's all you're getting this year. Don't ask for any more, then I shouldn't get any less, regardless of what the value of the mill is. True or false? I'm hearing a lot of truths from the people behind me here.
We've always said that the mills will be the same as long as the mills for the county don't get cut. The percentage that the entire county gets cut mills is that percentage goes to every department that gets mills. If it's 3.52% reduction in mills from the state, every department that gets mills gets a 3.52 reduction in their mills. That's exactly what we've been saying.
Okay, how are we gonna fix my problem, Mike?
You
How are we
still
gonna
have
fix
the
it?
same, well, go talk to the state. They're the ones that reduce the mills,
You're the
not
one that
us.
sets the budget.
Right.
We just
It's
told
you guys that, you three, the ones that
We've
set the
always
budget.
told
That's
you
right.
that the percentage of the mills
Okay.
that we get affected by is the same effect that
Mike.
you get.
Okay, here's the deal, okay? Exactly what these people have said to you all day, you obviously haven't listened, is that they're tired of money going out to things that aren't necessary. They want to feel safe. They want their families to be safe. They want their kids to be safe. They want their property to be safe. Do you think really they really care about some of the other frivolous stuff? And we've had this discussion 19 times. The fact of the matter is I'm never going to get where I need to be to provide the service that these people want in public safety. I'm never going to get there because the fact is I do not have the means or ability because I continue to get $615,000 of actual tax dollars and the rest of it is revenue that I have to find. That still hasn't changed. So I don't really care what the state did. It's your responsibility to meet the needs of these people that sit right here, your taxpayers. True or false?
True.
Okay.
But we got some other services
So-
we have to fund also.
So there's some that aren't important.
Like what?
Like what?
Who's that not important to?
Anybody want to jump in on this?
Yes.
Okay.
Jesus Christ, my God, support him, increase his mills. You guys have cut his budget. Clear back to when it was being cut and destroyed, when the Sheriff's Reserve Program was cut out by the county commissioners. The budget was cut then, it was terrible. Now look at what these guys are going through today, the increase of drugs and killings and loss of officers. My God, increase his mills. Decrease whatever you need to do. Look at what you have spent on this new garbage development. That money could have went to the sheriff's office and you could have left the garbage alone. You could eliminate some other jobs that you've hired in the county. Planning board members you don't need. You don't need other offices. You three can run it. Or you could lay off 5 and hire 1. Put on the top of your list, for God's sakes, these law enforcement officers. Fire departments. You want your house burnt? You want somebody to come and kill you at night? You want your child to be shot at school? This has to change. I have had so much support and so many calls. And the people are not in here. Trust me, my God, they don't want to come in here. They feel that they won't be listened to. They don't want to be discriminated against. They feel like they're aliens. They don't have the courage to come in and confront anymore. A lot of them are private. They're older or they're younger and they don't care. The younger don't understand. You have to change this. This has to be changed. Increase their mill levies. For God's sakes, do something.
Tell me, what do you want me to cut?
Cut the garbage department. Cut the planning
Why
board
would you
members. Do
want
away
to
with the
cut the
planning.
garbage department when it's $300,000 in the debt because of mismanagement before? Because you never raised the rates on the garbage for 30 years because that's why you're in the hole.
Holden told
If
me
you
that.
don't recover, and that's an enterprise fund that's supposed to pay for itself.
Mike.
That's why the rates went up.
Okay, Mike.
Because you can't run a 1996 budget for a business in the year 2019.
Okay, Holden told me that none of that was true, but I can't argue with him, Mike. I don't know the facts. Okay, eliminate or cut wages on some other programs. Maybe.
How are you going to hire anybody?
Okay, do you need a planning board head? No, you do not. I don't know enough about
You know
all
what?
the
Okay,
people's
let's
jobs.
eliminate planning. You know what planning did for us last year?
Do you know what agriculture
When we
did for you?
lost 17 million in
You know what
taxes,
agriculture-
expansion in residential properties paid for that 17 million. Otherwise, we'd have been further in the hole other than the 17 million that we managed to balance out by growth.
You're
And we
larger.
only have growth if we have a planning board.
Okay, your largest income is from farmers, ranchers, and landowners.
No, it's not.
Okay, those people want law enforcement. Maybe you don't want the protection. We do. I don't know. I am not. I agree. I am not educated enough on you. I've never been in your positions. I
I'll
don't
tell you
know
what,
enough
you
of
can
that.
have this one, it's open.
I don't want it. I know, Mike, it's not a fun thing. But I'm just trying to tell you what the public is supporting and asking for and putting them on the top of the list.
Well, then the bottom line is, and I would love to see public safety have a lot more money, but the bottom line is,
Right.
we do not have the money to give them. If you cut everything that I hear, that we need to cut this, we need to cut that, the only problem that is, every group that you wanna cut has just as much need as the group that needs all that money.
You could increase his mill levies. I have been around the sheriff's office for an awfully long time, and all the time, the sheriff, whoever it may have been in the past and the one you have now, has fought and not being treated right for their budget money. The money has been taken, it's been pushed off, or if, say the money didn't get spent in that budget year, and like your budget person here said, it's supposed to stay in the budget. Well, I saw the money taken out of the sheriff's office and put in other departments. Corey talked about losing his money in the other departments. That has happened in this county many times. Laura, you can shake your head no, but it has happened. You will find this out with the research that's going on now. Give him some more money, raise his mill levies, or for Christ's sake, go to the public then, let's put a mill levy, let's get him some money. Let's vote on it.
I don't have
If
any,
you guys don't wanna
I
do
fully
that.
support going with the mill levy, but I'm telling you, the money that the county gets right now from the state, we're spending as frugally as we can. And we're dipping into pilt all the time.
Well, you've got, for God's sake, people, please change your thoughts towards the sheriff's office. They are protecting us. This is a dangerous country. Go ahead, Corey.
Yeah.
Can we just get the number, because I'm not clear on it. So I understand our overall total number of mills went down, and the value of the mill went up. Could we get those numbers from what it was to what it went down to, and the value of each one when it went from to new value?
It went from 108.55 mils last year to 104.89 this year, that we have to divvy up.
104.89,
Yes,
108.55 to 104.89. And then the value of each mill change?
and then the mill, that mill went down by 3.37% from what we were getting to what we got this year. But the dollar value went from 16,047 to 16,456. Almost 16.456, or sorry, 17,064.8.
Okay, I lost that. Can you do that again, please? So the previous value per mill was what?
16,047.1. This year, the value went up 17,604.8.
Debbie, can you tell Corey and Wynn how much their budget increased because of the increase in valuation despite the loss of 3.37% in their mills? It's 37,000 something?
So last year, public safety, 599,520.78. This year, including the SRS mills, 181.83.
So
Cover that SRS liability.
can you tell me the mill number you told Gwen at the beginning of what the mill, it was a 37 or something and then it went to 36 something? Is that what you said a little while ago?
Last year, 37.36. 2.2 of those were the SRS mills. Or should have been 35.16.
Okay. And then now it's 30 something else. What is it now?
36.08, which includes 2.1 SRS mills.
Could you tell me what SRS is, please?
Sheriff's Retirement System.
Okay.
I thought it was Secure Rural Schools. I was way off.
It works. Works.
So, in my understanding, the argument is, even though the mill number itself went down because of the increase in revenue, there was either the same or more revenue to the sheriff's office? Is that what the argument is? Okay. So, I'm just,
Significant.
what do you think about
Well, it's
that?
not,
I'm just saying, I'm
it's
just
a
trying to
$2 million
translate, hold on, I'm just trying to translate the numbers so we all were on the same page
Let's
with the
put this in
discussion.
perspective, okay?
Let me
Just stop
finish,
for a
let me
second.
finish, I'm just saying, I asked for clarity on the numbers, so we all had the same
Okay.
basis for the discussion.
I appreciate that.
Okay,
Okay?
now go ahead
Now,
with
that's
your-
$637,000 in tax dollars out of a $2.1 million budget. The rest of it is revenue that I have to fund. So what people don't understand is last year I was required to find $775,000
Wow.
in jail revenue. This year, or no, I think it's actually last year was 830, now it's 864. So your public safety's banked on whether or not I have inmates in that jail that are paying, okay? So that's my problem.
Yeah.
Okay, is that we are completely lopsided on this and we continue to kick the can every year after year after year. So if we would have left it at 37.17, at least I would have visualized an increase that maybe, just maybe, I might be able to actually have a CIP, because I'm really glad that everybody else has got CIPs that have money in them because they didn't spend their budget. I don't have that opportunity, so I have to come down here and beg and borrow and steal and gripe and groan every single time I want a car or I need something for my office. Because I've got, my budget is smaller now than it was in 16 when I first became sheriff. It was 2.1 and change, now I'm $2,080,000, that's my budget. So I don't really care what the mill value is, my budget's still smaller than it was 3 years ago. And the expectation of the people that I house in the Broadwater County Detention Center is now well close to $1 million. Again, and we're banking that on whether or not people are going to jail. So that's the problem that I have when we start having these conversations. $40,000, $38,000 is not substantial in a $2 million budget. $38,000 in Corey's budget, that's a whole lot of money. To me, that's one patrol car. Not even a patrol car. It doesn't even pay for a patrol car. Okay? So it's not a substantial increase. It may be when you're only paying a small amount of things. So this is a conversation. This is why year after year I'm down here beating my chest, because the fact is we are no better off today than we were in 2015. If you go back to 2005 when that building, that nightmare called a detention center was built and put in place, because that's the best way I can describe it, there was 46.5 mils allocated to public safety. 46.5 mils.
Wow.
Now we're down to 35. We were all the way down to 27. So do we want to fix the problem, or do we just want to keep ignoring it? Do we want to keep kicking the can and hope and pray that things work out well? Is that what we want to do? And I'm tired of this annual conversation about this every single time. Exactly what Mr. Davis said, is when does public safety become a priority in your life? Because it doesn't really matter if it's not safe to live in and your people are getting shot, killed, raped, or beaten and their property's getting stolen, no one's moving here. You know it and I know it. Your growth doesn't mean a damn thing. You know it. We've said this time and time again, but no one listens. When the felony cases get too much, he's saying, hey, I need a deputy county attorney because I can't keep up with what's going on down here, let alone what's going on the criminal side of things and the civil side of things. We keep kicking that can. That doesn't become a priority. I'll be honest with you, I don't care what business or people move in here because the fact is I can't support them. And I've been telling you that every single year for the last 3 years. But no one listens. Everybody goes, yep, Wynn's just up there talking again. You think I'm doing this for what? Nothing. I'm trying to support public safety. That's why I'm still here. Okay? After 23 years in this job, I think I have a general understanding of what this is supposed to be and how it's supposed to work. But I can't have the funding to do it. We just had a conversation about trying to fix wages, but then you take money away from me to do it. So all it is a feel-good story. All we're trying to do is tell me what I want to hear, and then you go and change it. When I submit a budget and you tell me in April or March or wherever it was that if you had 37.17 mils, that's all you get this year, then leave it there. That's what I'm banking on. I built my budget on last year's numbers so I could visualize an increase to maybe, possibly, fund things that are unexpected throughout the year. And when you change it, it kills me. Okay? How much money do everybody's got CIPs? There's people that obviously have 33% in their cash reserves if they're putting money in CIPs. I'm at 9%. Let's not get back on that conversation. I'm the only agency in the gosh darn county that's 24/7, 365, days, nights, weekends, holidays. It has to keep going that way. If something breaks, it all falls down. And I've had this discussion with you guys. All I'm asking for, and what he's saying is right. We went from 46.5 mils down to 27. You can't tell me. I can show you historically that. You're not telling me that the budget's never been cut. It's never been reduced. I can show you historically how it has. I can show you how we used to get PILT allocations in our budget. We don't get PILT allocations anymore. Okay? We used to get, what, 26%?
It was quite a bit.
26% was back in the days, 26%. We had state entitlement, we had PILT allocations. That doesn't happen anymore either. It's just more and more money raised on the backs of the workers of the sheriff's office with an expectation, if you want to keep your job, you better make sure a jail's full. 6 pending lawsuits, I think, is what we have now. I got so many damn lawsuits, I don't even know what to think about. And every time I turn around, it's a $5,000 deductible. That's not budgeted. I'm here, I just want it to work, guys. It's that simple. But I can't make it work if you guys keep doing this to me. If you're going to tell me one thing, put your feet in concrete and do it. If you're saying it's 37.17 mils or 37 mils or whatever it is I had, then leave it. Give me that so that I have an opportunity to build my agency and do things for my own staff. But I can't do it if I keep getting cut. You know, we're just going to go, he needs this, we're going to reduce it down. That's exactly what I said was going to happen, and I already knew it. But I was trying to have faith in you guys that you guys are going to follow with your word. And when you say this is what you're going to do, then that's what I expect. That's why a public safety meal levy doesn't work, because the fact is this right here, is that no one wants to put their feet in concrete and say, we're going to give you 30 mils, 35 mils, or whatever else, so I can make an idea of where to go. No one wants to give me a designated amount of mills, no one wants to designate an amount of state entitlement money, which is always an unsure, and no one wants to allocate any PIL. But you want me to go out to these citizens out here and say, I need 20 mils or 15 mils. And then, lo and behold, they could give it to me, but nothing guarantees that the 30 mils or 35 mils or 37 mils is going to stay the same. That's why a mill levy is not going to pass in Broadwater County. True or false? You heard the same thing, Darryl. Right? You heard it. You've heard it. Mike, I'm sure you've heard it. Bill Davis said today. Okay? I'm here. I have the largest county agency in Broadwater County. And I am tired of getting kicked in the shins.
Yes, and he's got the most important. And Laura Obert, I'm going to leave. But you're disgraceful when you won't listen to the sheriff of Broadwater County. You sit there and you've been reading and looking down and going through all your paperwork. These two commissioners are looking him in the eye and listening to him. And shame on you. Yeah, you look at me, but my word don't mean anything. His does. He's why you're safe. For Christ's sake, people, do something different. Support him and his deputies. Don't make him have to make his wages from the jail. Can you imagine what he has to sleep at night? He's 24 hours a day responsible for everything. And what's in his head when he's worried about a budget? Why can't he have extra money in his budget? And you could talk to him and say, hey, do you have some extra money? Can we use it somewhere else? Why can't he have it? Why does he have to be held to a nail? Please, please, this county has got to change. Thank you guys for your support, for Christ's sake. Take care.
I do think it's important to remind folks that we did give $130,000 in PILT. And entitlement share is sitting at 127 almost, 127,000. I call for the question on the mills so that Debbie can get her work done.
What was the motion?
To adopt the mills for the preliminary budget as Debbie has presented them in the determination of tax revenue mill levy limitations form.
Is there a second there? Is Debbie second?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Motion made and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries.
So entitlement share is also in front of us, emailed by Debbie. And I would move we adopt that also to allow Debbie to put that into budget for adopting the budget on the 3rd of September.
Is there a second?
Yes, I'll second that.
Motion been made and seconded to adopt entitlement shares as presented, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries.
So we have the salary matrix that Michelle updated. And this is using, can you speak to that, Debbie? Did she use the industry standards as Dick suggested? Dick Larson?
Correct.
So she mailed that out, it's your colorful sheet. And I would move that we adopt that as well.
This is just the new matrix.
And Dick Larson instructed Michelle on the industry standards for just updating that annually. So that we don't have to every year hire somebody to come in, she can just plug in more of an average.
Is there a second? Second. Motion been made and seconded to adopt the salary matrix as presented by Michelle with advice from Dick Larson. Any further discussion?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman. So, I guess one of my concerns is I don't know that I've seen any of these documents. Secondly, it's been over a year and a half, we had a lengthy discussion about this particular document. And there's two schools of thought. One is to adjust the salary matrix by the standard national COLA, whatever it might be, CPI, whichever one you're using. The other school of thought is, since the whole point of that document is to basically put the ranges for officials and employees here in this county that we may hire, that should not be adjusted by whatever is nationally happening. It should be adjusted by the COLA that this county is adopting from year to year. That way, it's actually linked with our reality. And I don't know that we've ever resolved that, other than it sounds like we're using the national one. My concern is that is going to drift with the national rate of increase rather than with what the county is actually doing. At some point, we're not gonna be, that range is gonna be outside the range of our actual employment. And when you get a new hire, they're going to necessarily get hired at a higher starting rate relative to the long-term employees that have been here. So I just know that that's probably a longer discussion, and I'm just concerned that it's one of those small things that cumulatively are gonna add up to skewing our numbers for the wages for whatever our positions are.
And I think that she's using mostly the county and state figures. I don't think we're using the national.
Oh, I thought I just heard we were using the national one from Dick Larson.
Are we using national figures? 'Cause I
It's
know
the state,
she's
it's the state
She's using
means and
state
maps.
figures.
And typically, our minimum is where we are at with our COLAs each year. That's why we adjust it. Typically, that's where our minimums start. Then there's a range up to that median that we all fall based on that increase. So it gives some flexibility when people are hired to be at just what the lowest rate with the COLA would be, or based on experience, education, do they get more in that range?
And I guess I'm advocating, that sounds close to what I'm advocating, that bottom number should not be as it's adjusted, it should not exceed our COLA year by year, because otherwise we are automatically pushing new hires above, we may be pushing new hires above current employees. So maybe that's what's happening, I don't know.
No, because like, for example, I'm gonna use the sheriff's office, they just renewed their bargaining, 1403 until the COLA goes in. Well, the minimum standard in that band for someone in similar position is only 1293. So that gives flexibility within that, not to exceed not only their bargaining agreement, but a new person in another position without experience, that's their standard minimum.
Okay, so we didn't do a COLA increase last year, right? County didn't do one, and so this year we're doing 3.9. And so Commissioner Obert said that if we'd done the 2 years, it would have been 4.4, right? So we're 0.5 behind that, and that's okay, that's not a big deal. My concern is if that happens several times, that will push that number.
The state average is 2.5 every year. Whether some of us get it, some of us don't. Some counties adopt more, some adopt less. By doing that standard 2.5, the averages over time spread out. So one year you might have some lower, some year you might have some next higher. Depends on the positions that open up, but it doesn't exceed where we're at in our lowest person now.
Okay, but, so the last 2 years, that would be 5%, and we're at 3.9. The year before that, I think we did a 2.1 COLA, and 2.5 would be above that. So for 3 years for the state rate, it'd be at 7.5%, and we'd be at 6%.
So we're staying
No,
behind
less than
that.
6%,
Less than
5%. I'm doing my math, 6%.
And with how we worked at the median, we can't exceed 90% of median in anybody's, moving forward when this was adopted to a pay increase.
Okay, I don't think this is the kind of thing where anybody should get in entrenched positions. I mean, if we're talking obscure math, I just, over time, I don't want that thing to overtake our wages for our current employees.
It's
That's
just
not-
a tool, Cory,
Say
just a
again?
tool, it's
Say
just a
again?
tool.
And I think knowing what we know hiring somebody, Michelle and I aren't gonna say, oh, well, you're only worth $10, so that's all we're gonna give you, because we're gonna consult the matrix and make sure people are getting the equitable wage for the position they're doing at this point in time, not 10 years ago, because when they were 10 years ago, we didn't have these standards, and minimum wage was a lot lower. So we've talked with Jim Nice, for example, is the one that's encouraged me before I started, how to work this stuff, so that we can make sure we're staying equitable and competitive as much as we can, given our limitations.
Okay, thanks, Debbie. So we have a vote for the adoption of the salary matrix. All in favor? Opposed, same. Motion carries. Okay. Market adjustments.
So we have 3 requests.
Who do we have? Michelle, Teresa, and Debbie.
Yeah.
How do we want to address?
Probably should be Debbie and Michelle together and then Teresa
Okay,
as
so-
a separate. We'll start with Debbie since she's here.
Okay. And what was Debbie's request, was for 82 cents? 75.
87 for Debbie and 75 for Michelle? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So for a market adjustment, what we have required in the past is 1, that there's money in the budget, 2, justify the need, and 3, that it fits within the salary matrix.
Was Michelle 75?
Mm-hmm.
I would be in support of both of these people receiving their market adjustments. Because through the 3 audits that I've been through, they've been exceptionally all 3 times. They haven't had any issues with them. Michelle or Debbie has put up with a lot of stuff with the last 3 months with the union negotiations, the mishandling of those contracts by the union. I think she more than deserves a raise. And I also think the same thing of Michelle. I think she does an excellent job of what she does. She puts in a lot of time.
I'll agree, and I guess the other question, Deb, just to make sure that it doesn't trigger the Me Too clause, right?
Right.
And one thing we need to do to make sure that doesn't happen is not use the word raise.
Yeah.
Because it is a market
Market
adjustment
adjustment.
that falls within our requirements for a market adjustment and can be justified by the salary index.
So does someone make a motion to approve Michelle and Debbie Kelly and Michelle Beebe's raises?
Market adjustments.
Market adjustment. Abandon or closed.
You can maybe
Back at that.
You know, we make the recommended market adjustments for Debbie Kelly and Michelle Beebe.
Is there a second?
Yes, I will second that motion.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve market adjustments for Debbie Kelly and Michelle Beebe. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes?
I definitely support this. I think their job gets more complex year by year. I think that they have to deal with the intersection of, commissioners and people like me and the sheriff that are not very shy about sharing our opinions and pushing on them. But I would say, number one, absolutely, in terms of the complexity of their job, I think it grows, and I think that this is well supported. Secondly, I think my own personal view of the biggest priorities that the county, the top 3 needs in the county for new employees, I think number 1 is a detective, number 2 is a deputy county attorney, and number 3 is another person in the finance office. So I would say if there's a way to make that happen long-term, that would certainly have my support, but I think this is well served.
Thank you. Any further comments, Tim?
Mr. Chairman, Tim Ravenel, just a real quick question. One of the things that's been raised in these budget processes and the salaries or wages has been on a market analysis. And in the past, a lot of that has come from a research done on what's going on over in Muscle County or this other county to come up with them numbers. And one of the things that's been raised a lot of times in this meeting over that is comparing a budget process and an economy and I'll just use, for example, the economy in Lewis and Clark County is totally different than Broadwater County. So sometimes what we find happening here in Broadwater County is we're supporting, doing a good job, giving as much as we can, but at the same token, trying to raise a threshold or a bar that's going to be equivalent to some other area that doesn't even come close to matching the economy of where we're at as taxpayers becomes an issue of concern. So sometimes we don't have any idea where that comes from as citizens and just kind of have to wonder if I'll stop there.
Yes.
I guess I have some thoughts on that. It's kind of like what Wynn mentioned earlier about deputies and dispatchers that are well-trained and they can go to Bozeman or Helena, for jobs. So we are in a weird cross-section of analyzing these because on one hand, you have to look at similar counties and their tax base, right? And what we can afford. On the other hand, it's harder for us to do that without also looking at the fact you got Bozeman and Lewis and Clark County, right? Because Debbie, with her experience and qualifications, could go get a job at the state for a lot more money, right? And there's a lot more jobs there. It's a lot easier for someone like Fergus County or Hill County, because they're a long way from another major competitor unless they get a job at a mine or maybe a federal job, and those are few and far between. So our problem has always been traditionally when we look at this, is we look at counties very similar to us in size, taxable value, population, workload, employees, but you also can't ignore Gallatin County and Lewis and Clark County because it's not very hard to drive 25 miles down the road and get a job that pays a lot more. So we've had to try to make an art out of mixing both of those groups of variables.
Understood, thank you.
Any further discussion? We'll call for a vote on the mark adjustments for Debbie Kelly and Michelle Beebe. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Now Teresa Munson.
Teresa's, we have an email from Michelle that with more experience, she brings to the job a great deal of experience in management specifically, but her job description puts her in a band 5 because we don't require previous experience. So if we were to include her experience, it actually gives her enough points to move to an 8 or even a 9. 8 if you just do 3 years experience, 9 if you look at what she actually has. The reason for the job description is not to match necessarily Teresa, but the next person if there were one, because it's what you hire from. But also, it just does define who is on your staff now. So it is Teresa, even though you have a longer view than just that. So I think the first thing to realize is we're looking at a band 8 or 9, not 5. So with that,
So Debbie, this email is based on Band 8, is that correct?
For my position, correct? Or Teresa's,
Pardon me?
which one, Teresa's or?
Teresa, yes.
Yeah, she's already at 106%, where did she go? She's already at 116% in her band of 5. To give her any increase with her added duties and changes in duties, it does bump her up. And puts her on a more equal playing field with some of the other department heads and their responsibilities. Michelle talked about putting her, because to put her in my band 8, the median is $26, so we can't probably exceed that. So she would even possibly be in another band of her own.
Is that Band 8 is $26?
We have to put her to the 9,
Is she
depending on the
Band
point
5
value.
right now?
yeah. Yeah, and if you look at the rest of band 5, you've got deputy clerk of court, fair manager, who's extremely part-time, community development director, who has no staff, the WIC nurse, which we don't have anymore, equipment operator 2, and yet the county public health nurse is in this band. It's not a good fit. She has 2 staff, she has a lot of experience. So I think the first thing we need to do is realize that she's at least a band 8, if not a band 9.
So Band 8 works in her current budget, all right?
Yeah, I worked on her budget to include the high end,
Mm-hmm.
And what was that?
2712.
Yep, 2712.
As compared to other nurses, that's low. But the benefit of working for public health is you're not doing nights or weekends for the most part. If there's an emergency, of course, she's called in.
So that matrix median for Band 8 is at 26, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
To be 100%, to be at the maximum, $31. And then that's going over the 90% median that CBA kind of
Mhm.
considers the need to.
Yep.
To invoke.
would that budget, so what would that budget support?
Hers,
Yeah.
mine, that extra thing.
Uh-huh.
I ran it to the 2712, she said minimum market adjustment. And that's after COLA, I think it adds $1.52 after COLA to her current wage. I didn't go any higher than that. Because we had to decide on the job description and then the band in order to come up with a median in the matrix. Or where she falls in the band. I don't think Michelle got there, because we didn't have anything to go with.
One question I have, the 3.9% COLA. Debbie, you've addressed COLA, these market adjustments is for past, so it's, before COLA.
After COLA.
After COLA, okay. So the same would be with Teresa, would be after COLA. And it's not really Teresa, we're talking about the positions, the public health nurse. Our increase would be after COLA, so that would be it. There's not a 3.9 on top of that.
Right.
Any thoughts?
So thinking about it in that respect, it would be, say if there was a new person coming into this position, that would be based on if they had the experience, everything, that's where they would start. Is that right?
Mhm.
Except, we try and always start people lower than the person
Right.
who left, to exactly not do what Corey was afraid of. So, but yeah, that becomes a piece of the puzzle in deciding how much
They
to.
start within that
to
band,
spend.
I
Yeah,
guess. Right.
yeah. And when we advertise, we
Mhm.
advertise for the requirements within that band too. Yeah, you're welcome to this. And Teresa specifically requested 2712, is that what you said?
How did she phrase it? The minimum that she would like to see. She wanted more, along the lines with other public health nurses. That was way higher than,
Yeah,
kind of like everything else around here, we're kind of lower than the other areas around us.
right.
Because she's been offered a job, I guess, and so she's trying to justify staying. And Randy's retiring, so it's just her, she says.
Right.
She's trying to maybe decide she's gonna stay or no, or what can she do by and what can't she do by, and making those hard decisions. That was the lowest standard.
With the experience she has, she's clearly a grade 9. Grade 9 median would be the 2761, so 2712 falls below that. If we were to re-advertise tomorrow, don't want to, but I think we would advertise as an 8, because it would be less experience required, and that opens up more opportunities to find somebody. But Teresa does fall within the norm because of her experience. But one of the criteria is not that you have another opportunity. It really has to be unemotional for us, what falls within the matrix, and what falls within the criteria that we've established.
Does the current job description fall within Band 8, the way it's written right now?
I don't remember that for sure. I didn't see the final, Michelle was talking about it and weighting it with you guys,
In my
but
mind, I
I
think
don't
that's
remember
right.
exactly where it fell. I think that's right, but
Yeah, I guess in my mind, that's what I'm thinking, that we'd have to change the, say, the experience or some portion of the job description in order to go to Band 9.
Her email says, you know what, I'm just gonna read the whole thing. So the points for education are already rated at the max. Because you do have to have a degree to be an IOPN or an RN, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a bachelor's degree. There should be some discussion on the experience required for the position. As it stands now, all it says is some experience needed. That gives the lowest number of points for that section at 3. If you were to change the job description to require 1 to 3 years experience, that increases the points for that section to 7. That change would increase the overall point value to 71 instead of 67. That would change the band from 8 to 9. Median for band 8 is $26, median for band 9 is $27.61. And I think you would, if you did have to do, and the job description should reflect the number of years of experience that this particular employee has, but certainly we would want to advertise for a minimum of 3, because you are talking about someone who is not only a supervisor of fellow professionals, but the responsibility that's on her shoulders for managing minimum 5 grants. Again, federal money, which talks, there's very high standards, and then also public health.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Corey.
I think Commissioner Overton's correct in that analysis, because the other thing that comes with that experience is as different grant opportunities or different programs come through, if someone has that level of experience, it may give them an opportunity to bring in an additional service where someone who's brand new may not. So I think there's a good point to that experience differential.
This has no bearing, but I am gonna throw it out there. Teresa has also chosen to step up as deputy safety coordinator with her experience in public health, with how closely she's supposed to be working with law enforcement. I think that's huge, huge responsibility.
Is she worth more than the sheriff?
The sheriff's, what you're asking, is she worth more than us?
No, I'm
Yeah.
asking, is she
Yeah.
worth more than the sheriff, because that wage increase will put her over what the sheriff?
And your
Earns.
question is she worth more than us? And the reason for that answer is, all elected officials are tied to the clerkroom quarters. So what we make essentially per hour is what Wynn makes, is what Doug makes, is what Val makes, is what Kirk makes. So we are all, the question is for all of us, not just one. Is any employee worth it? My answer is always yes. If you've got a good employee, they are well worth it. If you've got a bad employee, you've got your 80-20 rule that applies, and that is you spend 80% of your time just managing that employee, and only 20% of your time getting work done. Citizens want 100% of the work being done. So that's why a good employee is worth it, so thanks for the question. And based on that, too, I would say that it's probably well worth it to do the $27 an hour for the grade 9, or band 9. Or we can do band 8, but I would say at the maximum, 26. There's two choices.
We have to change the job description first to do this.
We updated it already, it does need one more, and that's also on the agenda, is to update the job descriptions for finance officer, finance specialist, and public health nurse. And I just threw those out there for discussion, I'm more than open to discussion
I
or
would
debate.
be inclined to give her 75 to 80 cents, because that's basically the average of what we gave Debbie and Michelle. That would put her at, like, if you gave her 75, it would put her at 26.61.
Give her how much?
75 cents,
75 to 26.61?
yeah. And we can make that 26.60, whatever's easiest for Debbie.
Doesn't matter either way. That formula's in the cell, so it doesn't matter for me.
Is that moving her to that band 9 then, Mike, is that what you're thinking?
No, she'd still be in
Still
band 8.
Band 8, so if you go over 26 in band 8, Debbie, is that gonna trigger the me too?
Does that do anything?
It could, yeah.
Oh, what,
It's
do we
over-
need to move her to band 9 then?
If the pointing system puts her in there, then that's where she needs to be. She would be at the low end pay raise, or she just can't see the 27.61, the position, so there's that flexibility, and it gives room to grow in the next couple of years for that position. Or it tops out at band 8. So if you hired somebody, then you might have to change the job description to drop it down accordingly, depending on that experience and education required.
So you're
And what
saying
they
if
bring with them.
if we go with Michelle's email and we increase the number of years to her actual number of years experience, then she elevates to grade 9. And then we could do, because we're well below the median, we can do your suggestion of 26.61 at the 75-cent
I would agree
increase.
with that.
Yeah.
And it's not manipulating anything, because she certainly does have the experience, it's over 30 years experience. That should be reflected, and that takes her up to that grade 9.
Yeah, I think that's the way we go.
Okay. Do you want me to put that in the form of a motion, or do you want to?
I'll give it a shot.
Okay,
I guess I move that we change Teresa Monson's job description to reflect her years of experience. Place her in the band 9 with a market adjustment to 26.61.
Is there a second?
yes, I'll second the motion.
Motion's been made and second to raise the public health nurse from band 5 to a band 9 with a pay raise of 75 cents to a total of 26.61. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries.
Final motion would be to update as presented, the job descriptions for finance office, both officer and specialist.
So the finance officer, assistant, and public health.
It would be, we already updated per Daryl's motion for the public health nurse. And my motion is to update the finance officer and accounting specialist in the finance department
Okay.
as presented.
Is there a second?
There is. And I have a question for Debbie. So you kind of done the analysis, Debbie, right? This works for your budget and for district court. Correct?
Yeah. We worked it out, start at 13 an hour, and if they meet the end of the probationary period to $13.50, which is what Janaea was making when she left. So then it stays equitable, and depending on who's hired, could be shorting them. So it depends on who we get. Get them pretty cheap. But yes, it's worked into both our budgets.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the updated financial officer and accounting assistant position. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, same. Motion carried. So that's it for the agenda item. Let's see, we got mail here. Letter from DEQ for the Montana Innovations LLC Town Pump Belgrade Convenience Store Wastewater Facility. Another one from the Department of the Interior. Federal Minerals and Future Lease Sites. They have claims here in the amount of $322.06.
I will move to pay the approved claims in the amount of $322.06.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same.
That's a repeat contract, so it's a renewal.
Oh, this is ours,
Yeah,
so we need to sign this.
yep.
So this is the annual agreement for connection to the Montana PBS program services. Motion to approve.
I will move to approve the continuing grant with PBS.
Second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the continuing agreement with Montana PBS. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Okay, where do I sign this?
Mr. Chairman,
Is that it?
just real quick, is there a dollar amount on that agreement?
No, there's no fee.
Okay,
I think that page.
There will be no fee for this connection service.
thank you.
I think this is us.
Distributor.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other business to come before the commission?
I do want to share just a couple of snippets from our meeting with BOR, Bureau of Reclamation on Canyon Ferry. So Mike was there, Daryl, and I think some of these numbers are important for us to know. The boats that come out of the silos recreation is almost half of what comes off of the entire lake. So they gave us numbers that night, 2733 out of 6,008 total. They also were willing to change the decontamination station, which I've been a broken record on. but it's a regional name, so Montana actually stood alone as the only one not using it. So I was kind of impressed by that, thankful. They are testing for mussels monthly, they have found nothing. So it looks like we will be delisted. And then they got a grant for new bridges in the wildlife management area. And the pictures are very attractive. They actually had a horse go through one of the bridges, so they're very dangerous right now. So that is a huge opportunity for our county. So I just wanted to share that. It was a really good meeting, very short. Usually we all give updates, and they didn't ask for that. It was a very short ask, so we just really listened to them that night.
Anyone coming up here in the evening? For some reason they have a,
No, we had that was the one
they're,
last Thursday
Let me
at
look.
6.
even thinking something.
Did I tell you the regional director did come to the silos that night you and I were waiting? Yeah,
When did
he
you
just
get
never
there?
stopped at the store.
Oh, really? What was the drive?
No idea, I didn't ask. I let Dan know that we were there waiting and that he hadn't shown, and Dan said, yeah, I guess he went out there, but he didn't stop. So, and maybe he was out there later too than you and I were.
You think there's something different, sorry.
Any other business? I will be out of state all of next week.
Good luck.
Okay.
My thoughts are with you.
Did you guys announce this? Kyle came down to the.
Okay. So, from the Billings Clinic, it says, please join us for a community conversation about the future of healthcare for Broadwater County with representatives from Billings Clinic and the Broadwater Health Center. Tuesday, August 20th at 6 p.m., Thursday, August 22nd at 1:30 p.m., and it'll be in the 417 Broadway Ambulance Meeting Room over here, okay?
Tomorrow night at 6.
Oh, yeah, it is. And then Thursday at 1:30?
So we will adjourn at 1:47.